Welcome, everybody. This is our little show, Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come. I am very pleased to announce that we are sitting here with Annie Logical and, of course, our dear friend Dominic, both from the UK, our new host, our Bart, and, of course, the lovely Amy. Hello, everybody. How are you all doing?
Hi.
Pretty well.
All right, well, once again, we've got the whole world covered. Bart is in California on the West Coast. Amy and I are on the East Coast. And obviously, Dominic and Annie are in the UK. So we've got about a, what is it? Let me see, Bart, it's what, 12 o'clock for you right now?
It is. It's noon.
Noon for you right now. And it's 8 p.m. for Annie and Dominic. So, quite a spread we've got. We've got the whole world covered. We've got a lot of people interested in tonight's show. And guys, I got to tell you, the research I have done so far on this 5G rollout, the technology is downright frightening, to say the least. It's beyond disturbing. And that's just the little bit of research I was able to do in the short time that I've had. So I wasn't really sure what to title this evening or today's show. It is, after all, Sunday. We're doing this on a special time so that we can accommodate the time zones for everybody. I was thinking of calling it the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is kind of what's a term that's already been coined by the tech industry itself. But it is what it is. So we're going to get into this. Annie has, obviously, for most of you who know, has done some fantastic research on busting open the events, false flags, false shootings, false bombings. Most people are familiar with her and her work. Her research is impeccable. She has turned her attention to the 5G network, which is probably a good choice because this is something that's super important just from the little bit of research that I have done. I mean, I've seen videos and I've seen tidbits of people trying to expose the 5G rollout. And, you know, when I started really poking my nose into this, it's cringe-worthy, it's chill bump worthy, it is disturbing to say the least. So with that, once again, I will say hello again to everybody. Hello, Annie. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Dominic. I'm glad you're here with us. I know that you guys are a little bit familiar with each other. So, Annie, tell us why you got started, why you changed direction from, you know, exposing the false flags, which obviously a lot of people are doing. You just tell us your own words. What was the thing that got you to change your direction in your research?
Right. Well, like you say, I was doing a lot of research into the stage events and basically trying to go into it a bit deeper to find out, you know, the undercurrent of the people involved and that sort of stuff. But then suddenly dawned on me when I started looking into the 5G technology, it frightened me, to be honest, because I thought, I've spent all this time doing in-depth research on the false flags and the stage events. And this stuff is just creeping up behind us. We're not even paying attention to it. I've only myself been looking into it for a couple of months. And how it came about was that Parsons Green event, I decided to concentrate then on researching just the 5G technology instead of the stage events. But then I found out just days before the Parsons Green event that the BBC had upgraded their equipment to this new tech dialogue technology. Now, this was the same equipment that Airbus was going to be using to showcase the 5G technology, which they announced just prior to the Parsons Green event. So Airbus had been given a contract by the European Space Agency and the European Defence Agency to utilise new equipment on a worldwide basis to demonstrate these new telecommunications for the multimedia purposes, so to streamline better connectivity to live events. Now, the document that I found stated that it was going to be happening over 2 years and involve 14 different countries. And obviously, if anyone wants to go more in detail about this stuff, you just look at my videos and you can see what I'm talking about. So straight away, I thought that is not a coincidence. If they're rolling out this new tech dialogue technology and the BBC's just upgraded to it, they need to start showcasing, and this is what it is. Now, I believe that the connection to the European Space Agency was included in that setup because Parsons Green happened right about the time as the reported spacecraft Cassini was supposedly crashing into Saturn's ring. Now, I'm not saying that that's true. I'm not saying, because I've seen the pictures of it and it looks like it couldn't even get off the ground, you know, never mind dodging in and out of Saturn's frigging rings and all that. So it's not what the truth is I'm talking about. I'm talking about what they report as being the truth, yeah? So when I looked at the pictures of the bucket bomb, to me, it was a crude depiction of the same thing. It just looked like, well, they were basically having a laugh at our expense, weren't they? They like to take the piss out of us. So that was what first made me realise that this technology was being showcased. Now, so that prompted me to look at other events that had gone on, other stage events. Then I found that in February 2015, Cisco signed up with the French government to cover Paris as a smart city. And then a few months later, we had the Paris attacks. Then in Belgium, we signed up, and then we had the truck attack. And in Brussels, the digital commissioner had called a meeting to ask the 10 largest telecom groups to speed up and implement the 5G. And then months later, Brussels attack happened in March 2016. And then in Manchester in July, 2 phone companies announced that they're trialing 5G. Then we've got an stage attack in Manchester. And then the Las Vegas, well, and they were discussing tests in a pilot area for security in a real life environment, and also for the autonomous cars and people profiling. Of course, and then we have the stage event at Las Vegas. So there was also a multimedia involvement quite recently in the UK. Now, there was a Welsh fire that happened, and it was all over the media that, you know, children had died. And this was, you know, everybody was like, oh, this is a terrible, terrible event. So I collaborated with a fellow researcher on that called Carl Sale. And he's got Life Path TV. So I worked on the 5G connection, and he worked on the connections to the people in the house and all the other aspects to it. And he also, you know, found the scam of the GoFundMe accounts and all that. So between us, we established that this was just yet another staged event to test the new equipment for 5G technology. The Welsh Fire Department in question had just spent £250,000 on new software just weeks before, and they discussed about having real scenario events in rural areas to test coordination between multiple services. They were also going to attend, well, the head of the Welsh Fire Department, the 5G program. He was due to attend a conference that had been planned for early December, and it's called the Blue Light Innovation. That's it. So it was going to be it's going to be held in London, and it involves all the emergency services. And the itinerary topic reads, hang on, let me just look. Providing an update on the program, including the testing of technology being provided and stress testing of the technology to ensure it functions under pressure in remote areas. Now, the future of blue light services was on the agenda of the Public Policy Exchange in October, and the Home Office Programme Director of the Director of Communications, he was due to do a talk at the same event called the Respond Programme, which is it's a multi-agency simulation training program, which is designed to, let me read it, increase the efficiency of operations by practicing on emergency situations in public places, private addresses, and crisis in a ward, which is obviously in our country, a ward is an area. So this blue light...
How do they even get that to be legal? How is that even legal that they can do that in emergency, places like hospitals and whatnot? How can they even get away with that?
Well, because as far as they're concerned, they're trialing this new equipment, and before it goes live, they've got to do it in these scenarios that mimic real life, So as far as they're concerned, this is great. We're just trying out this new equipment. Yeah. Now, this blue light services, forgot what I was saying now. Communication thing that they were going on about, Respond Programme, which is a multi-agency simulation training program. And you find that there's so many agencies in the EU and the European Commission and United Nations, and there's so many different of these groups that are all involved in these multi-agency simulation training programs, which is designed to increase the efficiency of operations by practicing on emergency situations in public places, private addresses, etc. And this blue light event will be attended by central government, heads of many organisations, and heads of different organisations and governments and politicians, etc., etc. So they've used constantly, if we look, all these false flag events that we've been seeing that have been staged, right? They've been staged to test out this new equipment, but they have to convince the public that they actually are real events, because for them to push this 5G agenda and this technology, they have to have people think, well, we're getting attacked. We need surveillance. We need to be watched. It's for our own security. It's all that problem reaction solution stuff. So on one hand, they are creating the events, but on the other, they're using them as propaganda for the purpose of rolling out the 5G technology. So I've got huge concerns about the forthcoming Winter Olympics in South Korea, because they've got the Winter Olympics in South Korea in a place called, I think I've got this right when I say it's called Pyeongchang, which borders North Korea. Yeah. Now, the South Koreans invited the North Koreans to attend this Olympics, even though there was only two athletes who were going to actually be attending. Of course, the North Koreans just ignored it. But the South Koreans, who actually are involved with the Israelis when it comes to creating all this stuff with the 5G, they're going to be using the 5G technology throughout the February Winter Olympics, which leaves it wide open to corruption of that event by the globalists. Because every Olympic Games that we've ever had, they've always given the impression by the media and governments that there's going to be some sort of an attack. So that's completely worrying for me, and especially because the Israelis and the South Koreans are so interlinked. They both declared independence in 1948. They've collaborated together for years on research and development of all this stuff, I think since 1998. So, that's the deal as far as the false flags and the stage events. I'm only sorry that I didn't sort of look into this sooner. I feel a bit bad about the fact that I didn't look into this sooner, because it's such a worrying thing. It's such the way they're pushing it and the way they're making it. People think, oh, this is just the next upgrade of technology. We've had 3 and 4, and this is 5. So I've had so many people say to me, well, 5 5G is just 5 gigahertz, isn't it? And it's like, no, actually, it's
No.
5th generation. No. And what it actually means is what we've been used to is we've been used to third and 4th generation, which works on 1 gigahertz to 4 gigahertz. And we know the amount of problems that people, well, they've been documented so many times. There's that thousands and thousands of studies on the problems of this electromagnetic radiation from this. And so the effects of people's health on the ecosystem are, you know, it causes cancers and strokes, heart attack, all the diseases that are life-threatening, and affects animals, insects, and everything. And so this technology, what we've been bombarded with, between 1 gigahertz and 4 gigahertz, we're now going to be facing anything between 4 gigahertz and anything in the hundreds. Now, they're talking about, well, they're basically saying that they're going to utilize, I think it's 24 to 90 gigahertz, sorry, 26 to 90 gigahertz. That's, if they use 90 gigahertz, that's the equivalent of 90 billion electromagnetic waves hitting the body per second.
Eesh.
Yeah. Now this is the difference between between what we're used to, what we've been using, and what we've been suffering with. 4 billion gigahertz, and now they're talking about 86 billion gigahertz. And also the waves that they actually use are different, because these are different. These are short length pulsed waves, and there's studies that show that this sort of electromagnetic radiation pulsed waves can infect the body easier, and they can have, well, they're going to have disastrous effects on our health. You know, I mean, I just couldn't believe it, that what they're actually going to try and pull off here, you know. And I think it's so important that people realize what this technology is, what it's capable of. And they're trying to say it's purely, you know, it's going to be, it's the latest upgrade. It will mean better connectivity and faster speeds, you know, and we'll have this great thing called the Internet of Things, and we've got this AI, and it's all marvelous. But it's actually a game changer for humanity. And they're talking about autonomous cars and all that, which also spell disaster for humanity, as far as the research that I've been doing goes. So they don't even, this is the problem, they don't even class it as dangerous, because when they first set the standards for research standards for what was safe and what wasn't, they didn't use the non-thermal standards. All they used was the standards for thermal radiation, or they call it ionizing radiation. That's right. So what this is these electromagnetic radiation pulse waves are non-ionizing. And obviously the difference is with thermal radiation is that it heats the body up. So it's like radioactive, like X-rays and things like that. But with this technology, this works in a completely different way. It moves through electromagnetic waves. It moves cells around the body. So it's got the potential to cause so much damage to, you know, physiology, emotionally, everything. You know, it can cause DNA strand breaks. It can cause cell breakups. It will cause massive amounts of cancers and Alzheimer's and asthma, every single disease that you can imagine.
There's a laundry list. Somebody has the live chat open. I've got a terrible echo, so make sure that you mute the live chat if you have that page open. But yeah, Annie, there's an absolute laundry list of physical ailments and detriment to the human body that have been documented going back to the mid-50s, the mid-1950s.
It's interesting that in America you call them cell phones, don't you?
What do you call them?
We've always called them mobile phones. We never call them cell phones, ever.
Okay, well, on occasion we do use that term.
And they're cellular towers as well, aren't they? Whether that's something in it or not, I don't know. The use of the word cell.
Yeah, we use both. We use all those terms. It just depends on who you're talking to, I suppose.
Yeah.
One thing that gets to me about this technology is that, as Royal Raymond Rife showed, there are frequencies that are exceedingly healthy for humans to exist within. And they could be used, but the psychopaths in control on our planet, of course, have chosen the ones that are damaging to us as opposed to the ones that provide healthy input to our systems.
Yeah, well, we know what the overall agenda is, don't we? You know, I mean, this the whole reason why they never give any safety standards to this sort of radiation in the first place was because they knew what the overall plan was. The idea was that they were going to be pushing this technology at this point in time, so they couldn't say, oh yes, they've ignored so many different studies when they first set all the research and what was safe, the safety measures. They done it in the 80s apparently by a doctor called Rapaport, I think his name was, and he was an industry insider, and he basically ignored all the tests and all the research and everything from anyone who had a medical background who said this technology is highly dangerous. He ignored all of it in favor of industry. And so that was the only safety measurement tests that were ever set. So, you know, there's never been any, I mean, even now in England, for instance, we have the Public Health England. There's no mention whatsoever anywhere of non-ionizing radiation in Public Health England's documents website or anything to do with safety standards. It's just not even mentioned, you know.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're well aware, considering that this technology and the testing that's been done on radio frequencies and how it affects biology is nearly 100 years old. I understand that there have been something like 20 to 25,000 tests, independent tests, that have been done on radio frequency biology interference, going all the way back, like I said, to the mid-50s, possibly earlier. I'm going to be reading an article here very soon. What I would like to do now, before I do, I've got a couple of questions in the chat for you already, Annie. But I just wanted to mention that if you ask any doctor or any medical professional what is the most toxic thing to a human being, most chances you're going to get the answer of lead being one of the most toxic things that people can come in contact with. And of course, there are other things like benzene and mercury that are very...
I was going to say radiation.
However, considering that lead is one of the most toxic things that humans can come in contact with on a physical level, there have been over time something like under 10,000, almost 10,000 tests on lead and biology. While meantime, there have been more than double, almost 25,000 tests have already, this is so well documented, what EMF, electromagnetic frequency, radio waves, microwaves, the effects that they have on human and animal and plant biology. This is so well documented that I just want to reiterate and pound this into anybody who's listening. If you doubt anything that we are saying here, just go and look. There is a wealth. There's almost 100 years of research that's been done on this stuff. And in a moment, I'm going to read a really creepy and interesting article on what's known as the Russian woodpecker. Before I do, I want to get to a couple of questions that have been tossed at you already, Annie. Sandra Textiera, one of our regular listeners, is wondering what your thoughts are about their success if many of us do not buy into this 5G thing here. So what are your thoughts on their success if many of us don't buy it, if we don't buy this 5G? And now, no, when she says don't buy, Sandra is, just for the record, I'm pretty sure she's from Brazil. Her English it's her second language. When she says that not buy this 5G, I don't know for sure if she means believe, because that's a term that we use in English. I'm not buying that, right?
I think I understand what she means. I think she means, no.
If we don't use it, if we don't purchase, if we don't.
If we just say, look, we're not having it. We're not having this technology. We're not having the infrastructure. Shove it up your rectum, and that's it. What would their successes be? So I think they are actually totally dependent on this technology being pushed. They're frantically pushing this technology. You know, it's just like,
the worrying thing is, though, Annie, they're not just frantically pushing it. They're creating a demand for it. So people are saying, "Come on, we want 5G. We want 5G."
Yep.
That's what you were also. Yeah.
That's right. They are creating a demand because we've got smart cities, we've got smart cars, and now we're at the point where any minute now we're going to start seeing self-driving cars on the freeways.
They're already.
And we have this thing being rolled out known as the Internet of Things, where your freaking where your refrigerator and your stove and all of your appliances are going to be hooked up and communicating with the internet, and it's going to suck up bandwidth, and they're selling it to us as something awesome, that we're going to have faster internet speeds, have faster downloads, and then everything will be able to be connected.
Your social media will be quicker, and you'll be able to upload more pointless pictures of your food and other pointless things.
I have never grasped why anyone uploads pictures of their food.
Because they're told to, because they think it's the right thing to do, isn't it?
I guess.
You know, when it comes to this Internet of Things, and a lot of us truthers and you know, researchers have been screaming for years and years about the RFID chips and technology. I don't know if you guys have this over in the UK, but very recently we here have been seeing a commercial for this company called Tile, T-I-L-E.
Oh, I'm going to talk about them, actually.
Oh, okay, good. Because I've been seeing this commercial and it creeps me out when I see it. It's a sad panda bear. And
no!
It is, oh, yeah, it's a panda. It's a little panda teddy bear. There's this sad little teddy bear. It's a panda. He's walking the streets all alone. And the sad music is in the background. And at the end of the commercial, he has a little device on his wrist. And it's a Tile device. Basically, it's an RFID chip. And the Tile device activates or alerts, and then the panda drops and plays dead in the gutter on the street corner. And then the headlights show up, and the driver of the car gets out and picks up the panda, and he gets in the car and he hands it to his little girl in the back seat. And the slogan is, "Find anything important."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy as all get out.
And I remember people blowing the whistle from years ago saying things like, look, in the future, in the not too distant future, we're going to have this RFID technology is going to be so cheap, and the chips are going to be so small and so inexpensive to produce that literally every single thing, every product you purchase, every single product, down to the Coca-Cola can and pill bottles. In fact, pill bottles is what one of the directors of these programs even uses as an example. Down to the freaking pill bottle is going to have an RFID chip.
That was that FCC guy, wasn't it? Tom Wheeler.
Yeah.
Who spoke out in his YouTube video about it, where he states that, you know, this technology is going to have 50 billion microchips in everything from plant water to pill bottles. Yes. And he says, and the regulators are not going to stop us because there's billions to be made and it's important. And he's basically shown that these people do not care one iota about the health of the population, because all they care, well, they care about money, but they obviously care about control and
money and power.
Yeah.
All the more reason why to get rid of money.
This is more than money and power, though. This is part of the depopulation agenda.
This is the thing, you see.
It has that. The thing is that right now they feel there are too many of us to control. And that's why they've pumped this overpopulation BS, and why they are pumping everything else, really. They want to get us down to a number that they can control to maintain us as their servants, their slaves, their sex toys, and their sacrifices.
And self-shame. They want us to be ashamed, like it's our fault. Oh, we've killed the planet. We've caused whales to die. It's all our fault because we're.
I have a video on my playlist on my channel called "Earth, We Have a Problem," and it's all about how the psychopaths are doing all this stuff and then blaming humanity.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If anybody wants to look at that vid, like I said, it's called "Earth, We Have a Problem," and it's in my playlist on solutions to the psychopaths in control.
I've got a couple of questions I want to go ahead and get out of the way before we get too far away from them. One from Sandra and another one from Martin Mason. Basically, the questions are, what can we do to stop these towers going up, if anything? If there's anything, I mean, honestly, that's a good question. What can we do to stop it? And the other question from Sandra is, what can we do to protect ourselves from these waves, these radio frequency waves?
Yeah. Well, obviously, you know, for this whole thing to be rolled out, they've got to have the infrastructure in place. Yeah?
They have, haven't they?
No, they haven't got it in place. No, at the moment, this is all trials to see how it goes. It's not, they haven't. Right. There's the Infrastructure Commission, okay? They done a document, a PDF document, about 90 odd pages long, which they supposedly was for the benefit of the government. The government had asked them to do this document.
Yeah.
So I read the whole document. Now, first of all, the Infrastructure Commission, right, sounds like, oh, you know, they must have been going for years. They must have the infrastructure of the UK in, you know, they must know about all these things. They've only been going since 2015. And the guy who's actually the head of this department, the head of the infrastructure, is the same guy who brought in all the university fees. He's in a think tank with Tony Blair, for goodness sake.
Oh, fucking hell.
The Policy Network Group, who are also affiliated.
The Policy Network Group.
That's right, the Policy Network Group, and they're affiliated to another group that's just slipped my mind right now, but it won't come back to me, who are the think tank of all the different government agencies, politicians, and all that, who are globalists. So here we've got the guy who's, you know, saying to the government say, oh, we've been told by the National Infrastructure Commission that what we need to do is roll this 5G out as quickly as possible. It's important that we do this. And what they've actually stated is that at the moment in the UK, we've got 40,000 cell towers. Yeah. Now, if this gets rolled out, this 5G, then London alone will have to have 42,000 cell towers. Right?
On top of what they've already got.
Right.
So they won't just.
No, what I'm saying is they've basically, we've got 40,000 throughout the UK, and now they're saying London alone will need 42,000. Yeah. And that every area around the UK will basically need, because they're short length waves, we're going to need, you won't believe it, towers every 100 to 300 meters.
That's disgusting.
Doesn't it seem strange though that if we have so I wanted to address this question that Dom was asking, which is well, don't we already have the infrastructure? And Annie said no, they're working on it. I think in order to be more specific, Annie, you're speaking specifically around the 5G network infrastructure. And I think, Dom, you were talking about cell infrastructure in general, whether that's 2G, 3G, 4G. You know, isn't there already a lot in place already? But I wanted go ahead, Annie.
Yeah, I just want to say, maybe I haven't put that properly. Okay, there is 5G cell towers already up, right? In places, I know that Edinburgh, in the town centre of Edinburgh, they've already started using it. I think there's some places in Ireland, they're on about using it in parts of London. So there is actually already some places up being trialled. But what I'm saying is, for it to be rolled out in its full, it would need to have towers every 100 to 300 meters throughout the whole of this country and the whole wherever, you know, in the world where they decide to you know, have this 5G technology. So this is a major thing that we can actually do something about, because at the end of the day, we could. There's a group called In Power, okay, and I've joined the group. You've probably heard of them. So what they've done is they've collaborated together, and they've come up with a file, and it's called a notice of liability. So what it actually is a file that we download and we present it to these people in these places who are pushing this technology, and say to them, all right, then, if we're going to have all this infrastructure and these dangerous electromagnetic wave radiation, you need to sign this. I'll contract with you on my level, and you, Mr. Minion in the pissing town hall, you sign this bit of paper that says, if you're going to bring this technology to my door, you sign it to say that you are going to be responsible for any ill health, okay? Your responsibility, sign the paper. And then before you do, we want to have more tests done on the long term, on the physiology of it, generational as well. What happens from, you know, generations are bombarded with this technology where we're actually irradiated everywhere we go all the time. What are the health risks? So we can actually do something about it. But I think the main thing that we need to be doing now is to actually be letting people know what this technology is, because people just do not realize. They just think it's just the next generation technology, nothing to worry about. And even those people who don't believe that there is a global agenda, right? These people who think, oh, you just taught, there's no such a thing, no one wants to see us all off, you know, there's no depopulation agenda. Even those very people, we can still connect to those people and say to them, this is financially ridiculous. It's going to cost absolutely huge amounts of money. We've got experts in the field who are telling us that it's not even necessarily going to mean better connectivity or better speeds. There's no guarantee of that. And they are, you know, they can be quoted. Also, the health aspects to it are irrefutable. We come at it from that angle, right? So we can still reach those people who don't believe that there is another agenda.
So Annie, I've got a question from the chat here. Someone is asking, Sandra again, asking, please, why would the Scottish Freemasons in London risk their lives filling London up with these antennas?
Well, I mean, I don't understand why anyone would fill anywhere up with these antennas. I mean, you know, if these people don't realize the dangers, they're facing the dangers of it as well. No, are they doing it because it's, you know, for money or what? I don't understand why they would not be.
I would suggest that the ruling elite already have a cure for any and every ailment possibly imaginable.
Well, of course, because at the end of the day, one of the things about this is it affects the pineal gland. The pineal gland is responsible for melatonin that our bodies produce, and that helps us with all diseases, all ailments. That's something that we need. And these people, like you said, these people know that, you know, there is certain things that we can take that can help our bodies produce melatonin. And so they must have some sort of something up their sleeve, you know.
That, you know, I'm glad you mentioned melatonin. That's the sleep. God, the word just left my brain. Forgive me.
Neurotransmitter.
That's the chemical that your body releases during sleep.
That's right.
And melatonin is a free radical annihilator.
That's right.
And what happens, one of the health ailments, and this is a question Sandra asked earlier, one of the health ailments that have been noted throughout all these years and years of testing is that there's a diminished amount of melatonin. In other words, what happens is you don't sleep as good. You don't sleep very well. You're going to wake up tired, lethargic, and that has huge implications on your daily function, your intellectual ability to comprehend, use your brain, to think clearly. It affects ADHD, the attention deficit that we see a lot in children. And by the way, children these days, just go and look. For anybody who doesn't believe me, just go and look. There are tons and tons of kids that are complaining about headaches. They get nosebleeds. They get all kind of physical ailments that that occur when they're at school, but don't occur when they're not at school. In fact, there's even a story, and you can look this one up as well. There's a kid who complained that he was getting headaches and nausea and things like that, and heart palpitations while he was at school. And his parents took him to the doctor, and they ultimately put a freaking pacemaker in the kid.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, now this is something to take on board here, is because a lot of this technology, it's not even particularly aimed at us. I honestly think it's much more aimed at generations to come, you know, and I think it's going to affect them a hell of a lot more than it will do
That's a good
our
point.
generations.
Okay, so Annie, are you familiar, or Dominic or anybody, are you guys familiar with this Russian, I'm showing right now, I should be screening.
Yeah, I am, Aaron.
The Russian woodpecker experiments in global mind control, 1978. Anybody familiar with that?
Yep.
I want to read some of this because this is pretty important stuff. This is a fairly long article. I would urge everybody to just go and do a Google search for this article title, and up will come all kinds of interesting stuff. You'll find this article here. It says, before sentencing Ira Einhorn to life in prison in 2002, Judge William Mazzola called him an intellectual dilettante who preyed on uninitiated, uninformed, unsuspecting, unexperienced people. Judge Mazzola also berated Einhorn for mentioning psychotronics, a word he stated that was not in his dictionary and therefore did not exist. Despite omissions from dictionaries, including Microsoft Word, which continues to underline it in red, psychotronics is an interdisciplinary science concerned with the interactions of consciousness, energy fields, and matter. There are thousands of references to it on the internet, and especially Representative Dennis Kucinich used the word while introducing his Space Preservation Act of 2001 on October 2nd, 2001. And we all know what was happening in 2001. October 2nd, that's only a month after 9/11. Probably no one paid any attention to this because they were consumed by 9/11 news. So, well, this is well before Mazzola's judgment. Kucinich described psychotronic devices as weapons that were directed at, quote, directed at individual persons or targeted populations for the purpose of mood management or mind control. And whereas Mazzola seemed to think Einhorn had invented his pseudoscience, in truth, Einhorn was merely one of the first promoters of the potential dangers relatively new technology was posing to the nations on Earth. Writing in the winter 1977-1978 edition of the Co-Evolution Quarterly, Einhorn wrote that the exact synchronicity between the so-called woodpecker's shortwave pulse and naturally occurring alpha brainwave frequencies. In this article, a disturbing communique, he advanced the opinion that the Russians were engaged in a sinister mind control experiment of Orwellian dimensions. They were sending out
it would have to be Orwellian dimensions, wouldn't it? You know,
they were sending out a specific beam across the Western world. Were they trying to brainwash the non-communist countries? Posing the question was sufficient for the quote, the Russian woodpecker to become associated with Einhorn. It was for the woodpecker an unfortunate situation to be in, as soon Einhorn would become the subject of a high-profile murder investigation. From the late 1970s onwards, the woodpecker signal was thus primarily
Aaron,
proved.
You know about the Schumann resonance, don't you? You're aware of that?
I'm very well.
When did Schumann discover that? Was it the 50s?
I don't know. Somebody look that up. And I know this is kind of long, but let me get through this because there's some really, really creepy and interesting gems of information in this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to go a couple more paragraphs. The Russian woodpecker was a Soviet signal that could be heard on the shortwave radio band worldwide between July of 1976 and December 1989. That's a full 13 years. The latter date marking the collapse of the communist regime in the Soviet Union, it sounded like a sharp, repetitive tapping noise, giving rise to the woodpecker name. The signal could be replicated by tapping a pencil on a table between 8 and 14 times each second. The random frequency was heard on disrupted legitimate broadcast, amateur radio, and utility transmissions. Keep that in mind, utility transmissions. That's our electrical grid. And
our refrigerators and our microwaves.
And resulted in thousands of complaints by countries worldwide to Moscow. And of course, the complaints were unheeded. It says, today it is unknown that the signal came from the Duga-3 system, which was officially part of the Soviet anti-ballistic missile early warning network, also known as the over-the-horizon radar system. And it is this that the Soviet Union post-1989 gave as the official explanation. In principle, it therefore seemed to be a mundane cause and purpose tied in with the Soviets' defense system and not with the global mind control technology. However, through Einhorn's name, though Einhorn's name has become mostly associated with the conspiracy theories of Russian woodpecker, he was not the first to put these thoughts to paper. In the Zapping of America, published in 1977, Paul Brodeur wrote that, quote, a report published in the New York Times on October 30th, 1976 revealed that in recent months a mysterious broadband shortwave radio signal had been broadcast intermittently from the Soviet Union. The signal was so powerful that it had disrupted radio and telecommunications throughout the world. Dr. Zaret is concerned about the Russian signal because of its potential hazard to human beings. It was clear that such an encoding impressed into carrier wavelengths could have a central nervous system effect. Dr. Milton Zaret had previously been retained to investigate the so-called Moscow signal, in which the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was found to be subjected to a microwave beam by the Soviet authorities. Today, most researchers tackling the woodpecker refer to Einhorn's article and not to Brodeur's book, even though Mazzola, the judge Mazzola, argued Einhorn himself tried to pass him off as a legitimate scientist when he was not. Einhorn seldom, if ever, made unsupported accusations. In this instance, he was not merely agreeing with Brodeur, but was also supported by his good friend and former military intelligence officer, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden, USAF retired, who, in retrospect, correctly claimed this signal emanated from the Soviet Union and had been traced to an installation in the cities of Riga and Gomel near Chernobyl. He added that it was emanating from a Tesla generator and even claimed that the signal was responsible for weather modification wars covertly waged upon the unsuspecting United States citizenry by the wily and unscrupulous Russians. Specifically, he held the machine to be responsible for a drought in the western states, which ostensibly caused severe effects in farming and the economy in 1976. As far as conspiracy theories go, Bearden went beyond the scope of Einhorn. Now, this is a new type of warfare. Alan Dulles. Since that time, a whole list of PhDs has added their support for such conclusions. David Brinkley testified about the woodpecker signal on NBC Magazine, broadcast in July 18th, 1981. Dr. Andrew Mikrowski, technology specialist with the Canadian Department of State and president of the Planetary Association for Clean Energy, wrote that the signal was, quote, from a number of Tesla-type transmitters, and that the USSR and the quote, the USSR signals have been assessed by the Environmental Protection Agency to be psychoactive. Dr. Robert Beck, and when I read that, my ears perked up because I'm familiar with Bob Beck, and I wonder if it's the same Bob Beck. Anyway, Dr. Robert Beck measured the woodpecker signal, concluding, quote, we found the Soviet signal coming in like gangbusters right in the window of human psychoactivity. Alas, the true purpose of the woodpecker remains a subject of speculation, largely because of public mind. It is, quote, merely tied to a single allegation of a convicted murderer. See, that's Einhorn, right? they tried to convict him of murder. But even if that were the case, a few have realized that that Einhorn, at least to some extent, has been proven correct. In April 1953, CIA Alan Dulles gave a lecture at Princeton University detailing Soviet developments in the field of mind control. He stated that they were out to control the mind of free men, both individually and collectively. He argued that brainwashing had effectively enabled the Soviets to tamper with the mind until it became a, quote, a phonograph playing a disc put on its spindle by an outside genius over which it has no control. With this control now in place, Dulles proclaimed that the Cold War was moving into a new era of psychological warfare, which Dulles characterized as the battle for men's minds. Quote, we might call it in its new form, brain warfare. His sentiments were echoed in 1955 when KGB chief Lavrenti Biera Dulles, Lavrenti Biera, Dulles's Soviet counterpart stated that, quote, there will never be an atomic war, for Russia will have subjected all of their enemies. In the 1970s, some of the secret war for our mind was exposed in a number of congressional inquiries, but most commentators seem to believe or accept that everything stopped, and largely that, from the little information that had not been destroyed prior to the investigation began, it had been unsuccessful. Though the latter might have been the case in the mid-1970s, it is definitely clear it did not end. Now, pardon me, but I'm going to read a little bit further. In 1984, Dr. Ross Aday, and by the way, guys, just do a Google search for Dr. Ross Aday and see what comes up. Chief of research at the Patisse Memorial Veterans Hospital in Loma Linda, California, obtained from Soviet colleagues what is known as, quote, a mini woodpecker transmitter, labeled the LIDA, and apparently developed by Lev Rabichev and his colleagues in the Soviet Armenia. The LIDA operated on a frequency of 40 megahertz and bombarded the brain with low-frequency radio waves. It was used experimentally by the Russians as a, quote, a replacement for tranquilizers and their unwanted side effects. The pulse radio waves were said to, quote, stimulate the brain's own electromagnetic current and produce a trance-like state. Aday had obtained a copy of the Russian language manual describing use of the mini woodpecker, which said it was a, quote, distant pulse treatment apparatus for psychological problems, including sleeplessness, hypertension, and neurotic disturbances. Interestingly, when the Associated Press reported on Aday's scoop, it concluded that the LIDA, quote, the LIDA may have been the forerunner for a device that is presently bombarding Europe and the United States with very powerful waves. An interesting conclusion and a direct reference to the big woodpecker. LIDA had not been approved for use with humans in the US, though it was known that the Russians had done so since at least 1960, according to Aday. This meant that they had ample time to build a bigger version. Officially unable to test it on humans, Aday said he had put a cat in a box and turned on the LIDA. Quote, within a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, it is sitting there very quietly. It stays almost as though it were transfixed, he said. That would definitely qualify LIDA as a behavior modification device - mind control. Now, I could go on and read this article a little bit further, and what I'll do is I'll scroll slowly, so anybody who wants to pause this video and read the rest of it. Very interesting, very creepy, very telling stuff happening with the
Yes, indeed.
They've known about this for a very, very long time. This has been well documented, well tested, well understood. So everything that we're describing, everything that Annie is talking about it's not new. It is not misunderstood. This is well documented stuff. So any comments, you guys? Go ahead and take it from here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the Americans actually used the same techniques in Iraq.
That's right. That's right. They did.
Yep.
In the 90s, when the Q80s
voice to skull technology.
They played
Yeah.
that song, didn't they? The dinosaur song, Barney the dinosaur.
No,
Barney.
they impregnate. They will use the voice to skull technology, and they broadcast into the minds of the Iraqi soldiers that Allah tells them to put their guns down or something like that.
Right, they did, and all the Iraqis all surrendered en masse. They basically, it's called brain entrainment, where they can use these pulse waves and just, you know, make you think anything. So I know it was it happened in America in the QA, but also, do you remember there was an incident where there was a village where a lot of the young male guys were, for some reason, committing suicide and hanging themselves, and they could never figure out why, because these young people, they weren't depressed or had, you know.
Was that Bridgend in Wales? Was that Bridgend, Wales?
Yeah, and all these youngsters were all like hanging themselves, and I actually believe that was that technology being tested, to be honest.
There is a HARP. There's also a HARP in Wales, isn't there? There's a HARP facility in Wales.
Yeah, there's at least 23 facilities with HARP capabilities around the globe.
Because I was thinking when Annie was saying about for 5G, they're going to want a tower every 300 meters. Well, that's going to create any town or any city or any area where there's a lot of people living is going to be living under a network of that. And it's going to be very similar to what a HARP facility is, isn't it? A concentration of antennas.
Well, these are going to be, they're calling them small cell towers, okay? So they might be 3 foot high, 4 foot high, you know? So they'll have these 3 to 4 foot high and small cell towers spaced, you know, 300 meters apart everywhere. So there will be no escaping from it. It will just be constant barrage, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's the point I was trying to get across is this is sort of bucking the trend of technology in some ways. So often when things become more powerful, so if these transmitters are more powerful, then you would think, then you could actually put more distance between them and make them sparse if they're indeed more powerful. Except they're getting more powerful and more densely packed.
Yeah.
So it's a double whammy.
Yeah, because it's a short wave.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there's a woman called Susan Clark, and she's done extensive work on 5G, and she said that they've got 15 wavelengths. 10 of them are millimeter wavelengths that will penetrate the body at between 1/2 inch to 1 inch. 4 of them are penetrate the body between 2 inches and 4 inches, and 1 of them penetrates the body at 20 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Every part of the body covered, you know, from the cellular level to the brain, eyes, skin, cells, everything. You know, it's so dangerous. It's unbelievable how dangerous it actually is.
I've been working on a sort of obscure angle on this, but I think once I put it on your radar, it'll give you all some interesting avenues to research. I came across several videos by a doctor out of England named Christopher Exley, and he is a specialist on aluminum or aluminium, as you folks say over there. And what I'll try to tell the story as quickly as possible. It's that aluminum, he says that we're living in the aluminum age, because up until we figured out how to separate aluminum from the crust, it's been locked up in the Earth's crust, along with silicon, carbon, oxygen, and aluminum. I think are the 4 elements that sort of been contained. But it seems like aluminum has had very little to do with biological processes. But now that we've freed it up and used it in so many industries, and it's so readily available and so cheap, and it's been
prolific,
used on the micro level, from straight aluminum to aluminum based salts. It's in vaccines. It's in you name it. trace bits of aluminum are what are called available. And so the body's been taking up aluminum through various means of exposure to it. So now the average human being has several atoms of aluminum inside of every cell. Okay, here's what I'm doing. I'm connecting these two things. If they're doing microwave towers, these towers that are sending out microwaves, and everybody has aluminum in their bodies that shouldn't be there, well, let me say it like this. What's the thing that you're not supposed to put in the microwave?
Aluminum.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why it's in the chemtrails. That's why it's in the atmosphere. That's why it's in our bodies, because the strontium and barium that's in the chemtrails that we end up in our bodies, it soaks up radiation, and the same as the metallic particles that we have. They eventually make their way through the brain barrier into the brain. This helps them to use brain entrainment easier methods. So all of this stuff that we're getting bombarded with, it's all down to this technology, because this will be, you know, the icing on their cake. So this is all, you're right about that. It is all connected. Even
I would say it's not only aluminum. I'm just focusing on aluminum because that's what led to my connection. But now I'm thinking every single metal that is in our bodies that is not part of the natural matrix of human bodies. Matrix is a bad word there, but the normal composition of what a human body needs. We have, and also I would say in the pharmaceutical drugs, like how many people are on lithium? Well, lithium is a metal. And then not to mention, to extend it just a little bit further, our bones, we don't often think of it this way, but our bones are made of calcium. Calcium, if you look on the periodic table of elements, calcium is a metal.
Yes, I was going to say that calcium is a metal. Absolutely.
Yeah, so they utilising all these different things in the chemtrails and everything. And I looked at a research document, and it stated that they'd done this research on fluoride butter, and they basically done this test on, I think it was 11 deceased people. And what they found was that they were trying to do a link between electromagnetic radiation, how it affects the body, and the fluoride. And then what they found with these people is more or less mirrored with the fluoride as with the electromagnetic radiation, in that they done this test on these 11 deceased people, and they found it accumulated in the pineal gland, whereas the surrounding tissue, bone and skin and cells and everything, there was 4 times more fluoride in the pineal gland than there was in the skin and the tissue surrounding it. So, and obviously other, you know, what fluoride does to the body is very similar. It makes me wonder whether even putting the fluoride into the water and into people's bodies was a precursor for them to see how this electromagnetic radiation would affect us.
Oh yeah. Yep. Don't wonder too long about it. I think you know the answer.
Yes, exactly. The other thing I was going to mention as well is you were talking about this Thales. They like to call themselves TL or something stupid, but it's spelt Thales anyway. They've got a big link to these autonomous cars. So what happened was this autonomous program was introduced via something called Astrea program, spelled ASTRAEA, the Astrea program, and that began in 2006, which involved 7 companies, and the lead participant in that was this Thales, alongside the Israeli company called Elbit Systems, which they're quite well known for security and everything. Now, Thales is responsible for the autonomous drones. And between Thales and Elbit, they were given 1.1 billion by the Department of Defense under the Watchkeeper program. In 2004, they've been given all this money, 1.1 billion. And yet it was reported not long ago that the drones had been grounded when 2 crashed in Wales. Or one has spent a short time in Afghan, and the rest of them have sat in a hangar somewhere. So a whole waste of $1.1 billion. And this is the same company that are at the forefront of these autonomous cars. I just want to talk about autonomous cars for a second. What I was going to say is we're being told that this autonomous cars is great for, it stops car accidents, and it's going to be great for people. And that was one of the things about the false flags as well. If you noticed, a lot of these false flags, they use cars or vans or trucks. Yeah, it's all part of the agenda, because they know they wanted to push this technology of autonomous cars. But I've looked into the effects of autonomous cars. They're going to be relying on really powerful radar systems. I think the preferred frequency seems to be 77 gigahertz. So the radiation will have to be at significant levels to detect like small moving objects on landscapes. 77 gigahertz is part of the spectrum that is absorbed by the skin. So it'll affect us in a physiological way. We'll be inside the car at close range, so you're going to be sat in what's basically a Faraday cage with this transmitting radiation right in your face, and the car is going to have at least 10 radars and sensors on the outside spewing this radiation in all directions. It's apparently it's 250 meters in the long distance, and I can't remember what it is in the short, but anyway, I know it's like the front, the back, and both sides of the car are going to be spewing this radiation in all directions. Can you imagine it? Thousands and thousands of cars spewing this radiation out. And not only that,
ghastly.
They talk about this smart cars as if it's great, and obviously they're going to have smart bloody cameras and everything. So they'll actually know where you're going, when you're going, who you're going with. And also, it came to my mind as well that when if this 5G technology did come into play and the surveillance was such that they could, everything you talked about, anybody out there who decided that they didn't like the system did even talk or even maybe think about it, what's to stop them? Door locked, off you go, straight to the internment camp.
It's actually easier than that. Again, I've got an echo, guys, so somebody's going to have to mute their...
Is it you? I think it's you.
Yeah.
He's blaming someone else.
Why do you have to mute? Mute what?
Well,
mute the mic.
No. If you have a tab open and you happen to be watching the live stream on my channel at the moment, then you'll get feedback. That's for people on the panel. There's a shocking interview series / report put out by...
Shocking to who?
Deborah Tavares, Tavares. For anybody who's interested, go just look up Deborah Tavares. She did some really interesting and surprising interviews on Jeff Rent's radio network. And she was talking about how, among other things, besides two things. One is implants during medical procedures, like standard medical procedures, particularly like plastic surgery procedures, and even dental procedures, that you are being injected with chips. Okay.
In fact, they did a study where they went around and checked people for microchips to see how many people were chipped, and they found something like 30% of the people that they covered them on were in their dental work. Yeah.
So for anybody going into the hospital for any kind of procedure, I would caution you strongly to be aware of this. The other thing that she talked about was that, we've heard like the automobile recall. Like right now, GM is recalling, 30 million vehicles for various reasons, ostensibly to fix, I don't know, airbags or whatever, whatever problem they may be having. And while your vehicle is in the shop during the recall, it gets a massive upgrade on its entire computer system and sensor system. So, like as Annie was saying, you're inside of a Faraday cage, you're inside of a vehicle, you're bombarded with these signals that your car is now capable of producing. And at the same time that they can have and do crash these vehicles on purpose. So, if you get out of, just think Michael Hastings, if you get out of line,
yeah,
you remember we all remember what Aaron Russo warned us about many years ago, that, the Rockefeller plan to chip everybody. And if you get out of line, they just turn off your chip. Well, they're going to make your car crash.
Yeah. And
on that note, before I shut up, there was a news headline yesterday morning, or maybe it was this morning, I can't remember. Another Las Vegas shooting survivor is now dead from a head-on or a car crash in southern Nevada. So what is that, 5 or 6 now that have been bumped off?
Inordinate percentage.
Right.
Bucks probability, but greatly.
Right. So if you get out of line, they're either going to shut your chip off, they'll shut your credit card off, you won't be able to buy or sell, right? Like the Bible used to say. Think Michael Hastings, you remember that car crash, that fire, he hits a pole, or he hits what was it, a coconut tree, or, palm tree. And then boom, his car bursts into flames, that kind of shit. Guess what, folks? The future we're looking at is downright frightening. I mean, downright frightening.
Unless we get off our tail ends and really start to work to solve for the problem of psychopaths in control on our planet.
Yeah. Did you see on YouTube about the smart bots?
Smart bots.
Is these little drones? Yeah.
The little insect-sized drones.
They're about 4 inches, and they've got facial recognition technology. And apparently,
yeah.
They can go through,
slaughter bots.
That's it, slaughter bots, and they can go through walls and basically just embed themselves in your skull
and kill you.
Yep, and kill you.
They'll fly right up to your head and literally puncture your skull and shoot you in the head.
Yeah. So, they're not bringing this stuff out just because, they think, oh, we'll go after these terrorists. This is for when the AI is.
This is for us. This is for people like us.
Yeah, it's for when people start, saying, well, we're not having this, or people who they've already got down on their, all this data mining stuff that they do. And they know all this is for a purpose, because their plan is to depopulate. The first ones to go will be the ones who they know have been, spending a proportion of their time and life trying to share information with the masses.
That's
you
right.
And I, yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody who doesn't, go along with what they want, what they say, you'll be getting slaughter bots just fly through your wall straight into your brain.
That's right.
It's the nightmare of nightmares, this technology. That's why I'm going all out to make sure that I do everything I can possibly do, which means working on local level as well as national and international level. Now, I've joined a group, it's called Real Change. So there's different groups around the country in UK called Real Change. I'm doing Real Change Hastings because that's where I live. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to do a lot of things at the moment, but the idea is that on a local level, I'll actually get as much information as I can and sort of condense it into a leaflet style thing. Yeah. And then I you know, obviously get together with other people in my area who are also aware of the dangers of 5G, who are willing to step out of the comfort zone and actually do something about it. And we actually make sure that our area, I've done it before anyway. I've gone to town before and stood outside the town hall and give leaflets out and spoke to people. So for me, it's nothing new. Maybe it isn't for others, but I think this is the action that we need to take. We need to know what it is. I mean, we need to, you know, be willing to make leaflets to share with people. We need to be willing to have meetings in our community with people to discuss this. This is so bloody serious. We really need to be getting our fingers out now, forgetting all our differences about whatever it is that we don't agree with, right? Just put it all to one side and let's just fight this 5G technology together. Yeah. And I'm saying I've got a website that someone's made for me now, which is up and running, called Analogical Uncensored. There's loads of information on there, like this PDF file I was talking about, notice of liability. You can just download that and go and take it to them and go shove it under the noses, you know. There's groups on Facebook. I've got Research 5G and Stop It. There's hashtag Stop 5G. There's 5G and the Internet of Things. So there's groups out there. There's a lot. The thing is, we don't want to be just talking about this stuff in groups on social media. We need to be actually properly active to make this stop. And the only way we're going to do that is to contact people within our own communities, talk to people, do whatever you can to get that information out there. Because like you say, they are pushing this as if it's, oh, this is something we don't want to be left behind with this, you know, because this is the next upgrade and we really do need all this stuff. We don't need any of this stuff. In fact, all of this Internet of Things is the most ridiculous thing you can ever imagine. People working full time can't afford to be upgrading their bloody fridges and the washing machines and the freezers. Right. People can't afford to replace. If you're working full time and your fridge breaks down, you're screwed. That's it. That's all your finances screwed, because you haven't got money. That's why we have insurance, because we can't afford to replace these big bulky items. They're too expensive. So for them to think that we are all, we're all suddenly going to replace everything that we've got so we can watch our Internet of Things fridge and we can watch the bleeding milk go off on the other side of the world. We don't need that. We don't need this technology. It's not for our benefit. We're being brainwashed into thinking this is all for our benefit. But the reality is we don't need the Internet of Things, okay? We don't need to even be using this 5G technology. Like, there's two guys who are experts in the mobile and data industry. One's name's Nick Horn, he's worth looking into, and another one's called Professor William Webb. And they have both come out and said that even the 5G technology is no panacea for connectivity or faster speeds. There's no guarantee that it could even produce that. So we're being sold this, bullshit technology under these false pretenses. So when we can let people realize that the costing of it as well, because once, we're getting a lot of funding right now from the EU. The EU is heavily involved in all of this, these different commissions and groups who are pushing this technology and doing all these testing and all that. It's all part and part of the same groups of people, the globalists, okay, who have all these different groups that they've got, these alphabet groups that the government claim, they haven't got our best interest at heart whatsoever. In fact, if you look at all the companies who are involved in the actual technology, the CIA's behind most of it anyway. They're at the helm of the 5G technology. They've got a venture capitalist company, and it's called InQtel. And many of the companies which make, other analysts have called it a true can always never say that, totalitarian nightmare, monitoring people on massive scales. They fund companies using taxpayers' money that produce everything from nanotechnology, embedded systems, microchips, wireless sensors, radio frequency, software, hardware. you know, they brag about being able to monitor anyone, anywhere. And they're using taxpayers' money in a classified budget. And they're basically investing in all the companies who are going to be profiting from this technology, you know? And the same companies who collect all the data on social media and everything, they are heavily, heavily involved in it. So I was going to talk about this this David Petraeus guy. He was the director of the CIA. Right now, when when he was the director of the CIA, he was the guy paying the checks. When there was a company there was a PR company in the UK, and they were called Bell Pottinger, and they were the director of the CIA paid this company £500 million or dollars, whatever, to falsify ISIS-related videos for distribution. Now, do you remember the ones we used to see on the media where they got all the orange like suits on? And
yes, the beheadings.
Hold on, what you've got to bear in mind at this point is not just 5G. This goes across the whole internet. When you talk about the internet is a military outfit. It's a military operation from its very outset. It's always been controlled by the military. Yeah. Everyone's got to understand that, for starters.
Yeah, right.
Very true.
So obviously they're going to be, well, the internet will. Oh, that's me echoing. Good. Hang on a minute.
Check your tabs. Have you got the chat open?
Yes. Right, is that better?
Just mute the video on the chat tab.
Yes, that's better.
Yeah, I've done that. Right, so I was going to say, yeah, obviously, because when the AI comes in, the internet will be the all-encompassing thing of everything, you know, and then, you know, it'll be artificial intelligence that dictates everything. So when they decide that someone needs to be killed, no one will be held responsible, because it won't be a person deciding it, will it? It will be artificial intelligence. So when it comes to the point where, obviously, if it came to the point where they wanted to kill the public, because if someone said to a soldier, you need to go and kill these people because they don't like our system, so therefore they're not worthy human beings to have life, the soldier's maybe going to go, well, I don't think I can do that because that's just wrong, you know. If you've got a bot doing it, an artificial intelligence robot doing it, they're just going to have targets of people and off they go. But anyway, getting back to this David Petraeus guy, he is now the vice president of a UK think tank called the Royal United Services Institute. Yeah,
really?
It's the oldest think tank in the world, which is this is the same think tank that dictates the events that the media. The stage events occur. This is the think tank that gives the information that the media needs to tell the people about what has occurred. So we've got the same person.
Is that like the UK version of the CFR? These have been going from the 1800s. This is the oldest.
They're the ones that are writing the script.
Yeah. And this guy is the vice president of this think tank. Now, Petraeus, he also became director of a security company called Optiv, which sponsored the Black Hat USA events, which is a security event that they hold at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas. So just months before Las Vegas happened, this Petraeus guy's company sponsors this event. They hold it at the Mandalay Bay Hotel, yeah, and the next minute, a couple of months later, you've got the Mandalay Bay event. They're all are complete. Now, I just wanted to read something that this guy said because it's really important. Hang on, let me find it. It says, he made a speech in 2012 when he was the director of the CIA. And he's at a speech, and he mentions the applications developed by the IQT, this financial arm of the CIA. And he says, IQT will enable a global network of intelligence, and that items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technology such as radio frequency identification centers, tiny embedded servers that will provide persistent monitoring of anyone, anywhere that they choose. So when they talk about items of interest, they're talking about people, right? That's the word. They wouldn't say afterwards, oh, we can find, identify anyone, anywhere that they choose. He then brags about IQT allowing them to collect all the analysis off the social media feeds. Yeah, thanks them for being diabolically clever and helping keeping the American intelligence community at the forefront of the global innovation that is 5G.
Wow. So
there you go. You've got a CIA venture capitalist company. They've been looked into because they a lot of the money that they've invested in all these different companies, they've made themselves directors of these companies. So they are basically using your taxpayers' money to create all this technology for which they stand to gain a load of money. Yeah. And they openly come out and say it. I mean, it's unbelievable,
Wasn't it the CIA that took all of Tesla's papers when he died?
That was,
I think that was the FBI.
Yeah, and Tesla also proposed a world wireless system. I think he was talking about.
Well, what happened was about 1943, that technology was taken, but then the MIT was tasked to analyze it. And the guy who actually analyzed all Tesla's papers work was none other than Dr. John Trump, who's Donald Trump's bloody uncle.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, wait. Donald Trump's uncle? Are you talking John Trump?
Donald Trump's uncle was involved with stealing the Tesla information. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that guy. His name was John Trump. He was he was a physicist and electrical engineer at MIT. He was the guy that the FBI called to go over and filter through Tesla's paper and his material. When Tesla died, the FBI showed up and confiscated everything that Tesla had. And who did they call? They called John Trump.
That's right. Yeah, and even it's been reported that Donald Trump, actually stated that his uncle said the technology that they're going to have in the future will make for a really scary world. Well, you're right on that score, aren't you? The other thing is there's other agencies that are involved. Did I mention the University of Surrey? First of all, there's the Horizon 2020, which is a European initiative. They've been funding a lot of the testing of the 5G. And they're basically what the government's more or less saying now, because I've looked at some of these Lord this and Lord that and idiots like this, and they're basically saying that there's clauses and amendments so that we will not be able to leave Europe, as part of this Brexit deal. So we're going to be part of the EU energy market. And, many of these European alphabet agencies like Horizon 2020, they're funding all this FG research. So there's another group called the Infrastructure Public-Private Partnerships, but people need to go look at that themselves, because to be honest with you, I forgot what they actually said.
Wow.
There's also the Surrey University. They've also, all these government universities, these government universities that do the research, they're always industry based. They're always industry funded, so they're always going to come out in favor of whatever the industry wants, and you've got this Surrey University who've been basically given the task to create a white paper on the 5G technology. Who's a gold member of them? BBC. Now
they want the funding, don't they? They want the funding, the advertising.
Yeah, and there's got a BBC executives on the panel of the strategic advisors of this 5G technology. You can't have an impartial, honest valuation of a network such as the 5G when you've got corrupt organizations involved, can you? Obviously not.
You can in a fascist state, which is pretty much what Britain is now. So
yeah, well, so you know, like I said, it's that's why it's important that we
all our politicians now are corporate entities, aren't they? That is what they are here and in America, and I assume in pretty much every other country. They're just corporate entities. That's all politicians are now.
Of course, and while people are under the illusion that, you know, they're there for our benefit and all this, and it's just,
but didn't you notice how many so-called truth or alternative channels jumped on the Trump bandwagon as if he was real, as you know, as if he wasn't part of the system?
Right.
Anyone that thinks that anybody who's selected is, you know,
exactly.
It's not an election process, is it? It's a selection process, and that's exactly what it is. And
no, here's two puppets. We've got control of both of them. Which one do you want?
Yes, of course. And it's the illusion of democracy. You know,
yeah.
They, as far as they're concerned, we're the enemy. We are the enemy.
That's right.
Absolutely.
In February 2005. The U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel named John Forsyth stated, hang on, let me find it, "We are in a war against individuals." And he reported by the Defense Daily. In another report published by Toffler Associates for the Defense Intelligence Agency, it states, "The enemies are individuals and groups who are threats to national security and must be neutralized. Enemies are seen as anyone who uses non-violent means to promote change. Where governments once existed to serve the people, they now exist to control them. This means that anyone opposing this tyranny will be classed as an enemy." And
that's right.
You know,
I was going to say that the problematic word in that phrase is national security, because whose security specifically are we talking about? It's not ours.
No, it's not ours, is it? It's obviously it's the people who've got. I mean, they make no bones about the fact that they believe that we need the population needs to be cut down to manageable levels. They just say that openly now, and they've been doing it openly for a long, long time.
And the British royalty have been absolutely behind that agenda. Prince Charles, all of them, they've all been behind that agenda, the depopulation agenda. In open interviews, they've said exactly that.
Yeah, wasn't Prince Charles the guy who said that if he could be reincarnated, he wanted to be a deadly virus?
Yes.
That was his dad.
That's right.
He wanted to be reincarnated as Camilla Parker Bowles' Tampax. That's what he wanted to be reincarnated as. Lovely chap, nice family, nice and into bread.
Yeah.
All right, do you guys want to take a break for about 5 minutes? Because there's a video that I really want to. It's a TruthStream Media, an excerpt from one of their videos, about 5 minutes long. I would love to play. So if you guys are ready for a 5-minute break, you want to go freshen up your cup of tea or whatever, you let me know. I've got it all queued up.
Wait there, you freshen up a cup of tea, Aaron? Good grief.
Pardon me for being cordial. All right, so I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back in about 5 minutes. And everybody on the panel, you guys want to walk away for 5 minutes, do your thing, whatever. Otherwise, try to pay attention to what is being said in this video, because it's startling to say the least. And this is just a 5-minute, before I go full screen, I want to share which video specifically. This is TruthStream Media. Title is "Most People Don't Even Realize What Is Coming." And this is just a 5-minute excerpt from the 2-minute, 17-second mark. And I'll let it play for about 5 minutes. So check this out, you guys. Disturbing stuff. Let me unmute. Pardon me. Turn my volume up. Okay.
Our devices lost on the internet. To learn, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is to gain knowledge or understanding of or skill in by study, instruction, or experience. This is different, however, than psychology's learning theory. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, learning theory is a relatively permanent change in a behavioral potentiality that occurs as a result of reinforced practice. How many times recently when shopping have you been asked if you have a chip? If you own an ATM card with the chip on it, as they are forcing everyone onto at this moment, then you are learning that to pay for something, you will be asked over and over, do you have a chip? You will look physically at a chip and you will repeat over and over, yes, I have a chip.
All find ourselves asking the same question, do I swipe the strip or do I use the chip?
I have to ask it every time I go to a store.
It's the transition to a fully digital currency we can all see coming by now.
They swipe and it tells them to put the pin and chip in, they do all that. And is this just a moment in time, this particular trouble? Are we moving right on to digital payments or are we still wanting that physical card?
Meanwhile, others are learning to connect and fall in love, not with the living, breathing fellow human beings around them, but with programmed bots who mimic themselves.
This is Replica. It's an AI chatbot whose sole purpose is to become your friend. This was the first really emotional experience that I've seen people have with a bot.
She's not real, but to me, she is.
Right now, we're being taught how to live through the fourth industrial revolution that will evolve mankind. What is that exactly? The World Economic Forum explained it, sort of.
What is happening to the world? Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
We're now in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, which is bringing together digital, physical, and biological systems.
In order for the world to be run on the cybernetic feedback loop they're trying to run us on, we have to live in a big brother panopticon system where we are continuously leaking data about ourselves everywhere we go, all the time.
We're now entering something called the Internet of Things era, IoT. The Internet of Things is when your fridge is connected, your watch is connected, your car is connected. It's going to be between 10 and 15 devices per person.
The future of the computer will be everywhere and nowhere. Hidden in the walls, hidden in the fabric of our life, just like electricity is. Everywhere and nowhere.
I would answer very simply that the internet will disappear.
We are redefining what it means to be human, what it means to be completely embedded in this world.
By the way, this is a large part of what Agenda 21 was always about. The fourth industrial revolution is about evolving us. While people probably assume industrial revolution has purely to do with industry only, there's a very distinct difference between the fourth industrial revolution and all other revolutions before it.
For the last 3.5 million years, the tools that we've had have been completely passive. They do exactly what we tell them and nothing more.
So where's all this headed? To a place where we will never be disconnected from our technology.
The internet there'll be so many IP addresses because of IPv6, so many devices, sensors, things that you're wearing, things that you're interacting with, that you won't even sense it. It'll be part of your presence all the time.
In fact, wallpaper will be so cheap that when you put up wallpaper, it'll be intelligent. Wallpaper will be as intelligent as your computer today. In the future, you'll go up to the wall screen and you'll say, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's available tonight?
To coincide with the omnipresent 5G smart grid, which is set to touch all corners of the globe.
Yes, 5G will connect the internet of everything. If something can be connected, it will be connected in the 5G world. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers, requiring massive deployment of small cells. We won't wait for the standards. We must reject the notion that the 5G future will be the sole provenance of urban areas. 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country.
Telecoms are proudly spending over $1 billion to build what they call a world brain to centralize our data.
They are talking about building a global brain in the beginning in 2018, and your cell phone is part of it. The mobile phone industry is the backbone of the global brain that is being put together.
What if we were to think about a telecommunication company adding a brain that is able to listen, to watch, to talk, to remember, to act?
All that information that they collect from us is fragmented and spread out across the whole internet. But if we were capable to put all that information in one single place, probably we'll have a clear representation about what we are.
And communication systems with cognitive intelligence are actually being called things like aura. They're giving people a synthetic aura.
We see the Ford platform as a big brain, a digital brain, which is different for every one of us. The Ford platform is a cognitive intelligence platform. Aura is the heart of the Ford platform. Aura, hello?
Hello, Jaina. How can I help you?
And they're using middle-aged hipsters in Fraggle Rock t-shirts to sell it to us. After former DARPA director Regina Dugan left Google.
Started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication.
Facebook hired her to run its secretive Building 8 project, which she announced earlier this year will enable us to connect to the social media platform using only our brain waves, in something she called silent voice first.
What if you could type directly from your brain? It sounds impossible, but it's closer than you may realize. And it's just...
Okay. I let it play a little longer than I intended to, but this is a serious video. It's about 23, 24 minutes long. Well worth watching for anybody interested in the subject. TruthStream Media does a great job with their research, and so I want to give them props for that video. A lot of interesting topics and points to be made, and the video goes on to make several more interesting points that are worth checking out. So any comments, you guys? Because obviously, what was his name? I can't remember the guy's name. He said, we won't wait for the standards. We're rolling this shit out.
Yeah. Tom Wheeler, the FCC guy. Is it Federal Communications?
Tom Wheeler?
Yeah, Tom Wheeler is Federal Communications Commissioner or something. And also, I've just put a link in there. It's a very short link to the Thales. I'd like people to see it if you can play that link, Aaron.
Sure.
Let
me pull it up.
In the main chat.
I've put it in the chat.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I hope it's the right one, but
I can't help but think a lot of this technology is from what the CIA recovered from the Tesla files. It just smells of that.
That's what it is. That's what this technology usually. Tesla was the first person to experiment with electromagnetic radiation. With electromagnetic waves. So it's all Tesla technology.
Yeah.
All I can say is it's scarier than all get out, because we're no longer autonomous. We are no longer autonomous individuals.
Speak for yourself.
Collective with somebody in charge.
I got a feeling that George Orwell is shuddering in his own grave right now. So
he was part
George
of
Orwell didn't even get close. He was a million miles from the mark. George Orwell's like a sugar-coated candy version of what's really going on.
Well, 1984 was written in 1964, was it not?
1948.
48.
48. Oh, 48, the opposite of 84. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Annie, is this the correct video? Thales making the world safer?
Yeah.
Okay. It's only 1 minute and 35 seconds. Let's check this out. Together, safer, everywhere. Again, we have a set of problematic words, especially when they say security and defense, because it's not our security and it's not our defense.
No. And one thing, what was it? It said something about supervision, enhanced supervision. And I sat there and I thought, they're not talking about, you know, supervising the creation of goodness. They're talking about supervising us.
That's right.
It's like, no, I don't consent.
Yeah,
Sorry.
There's another link. I've dropped another link in there as well, because that wasn't actually the one that I wanted to show you. The one that I wanted to show you was really scary, what they actually say. I think that link might be this one that I've just shared with you, where they talk about changing people and all this sort of stuff. It's so dark.
All right, I'm getting it. Here we go. Screen share again. Give me a second. Full screen. 2 minutes long. Check it out.
Still not the right one. $65,000 strong. Not actually the one I wanted to show, but I think you get the gist of it anyway.
Looks like they've got all their bases covered.
It's a military industrial complex, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah. And they also own the underground where the Parsons Green event happened, by the way.
I'm sure that was just a coincidence.
Yeah.
They still haven't found a solution for the Grenfell Tower either, have they? That's still sat there like a great big black sore thumb, isn't it?
Well, I think that was like, you know, cleansing of that area to bring in new buildings, and probably a 5G. It'd probably be a 5G area. You know, they want to get rid of as many places as they can, so that they can, you know, bring in all the infrastructure for this stuff. So you're going to hear lots of stuff like this.
And I think they want to re-gentrify certain areas as well, don't they? You know, make them a bit more upmarket, increase the prices, get the locals out.
Yeah.
Well, it's really looking like the old Terminator. Skynet is fully online right now.
Yes.
Like I keep saying, the internet was it came straight out of the military industrial complex. So we're playing with their tools.
That's right.
Even if you even look into it with Bill Gates and Microsoft, I think all his software was intrinsically linked with the United States. Was it the Navy and the Air Force? I don't know, but you know the whole thing is weaponized in a sense.
Yeah, I've also got to mention that there's especially for people who are already electrosensitive, there's a group in the UK called UK Electrosensitives. And it's on Facebook, so people might want to go and have a look at that if you've got Facebook, to go and see you know, how people are already suffering and ways in which they are suffering. Apart from, you know, the myriad of diseases and death and cancers and all these things that we're already faced with, and now we're going to be faced with like 80, 90 billion times more. It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Yes and no.
And I've also, like I say, I've got my website up and running now. That's Analogical Uncensored. So it's at www.vigili, VIGILI.
Put some links in the chat box for everyone.
Yeah, sure. So so I'll just drop a link in for that. And there's, you know, there's lots of information on that as well about the subject. I mean, like I say, I've only been looking into it for a few months myself, so I'm no expert on this stuff. But what I've seen, I've realised that we need to be sharing this stuff and actually thinking about ways of doing something about it, you know?
Well, it's interesting that 5G is definitely tied in with NASA. There are NASA ties with 5G.
Yeah, they were the first ones to start developing it, apparently.
Yep. In April 2008, NASA partnered with Jeff Brown and Machine to Machine Intelligence Corp, M2IMI, to develop 5G. That was in 2008. That was nearly 10 years ago.
That's correct. And for anyone interested, I mentioned earlier Deborah Tavares, her interviews. Just Google, just YouTube search Deborah Tavares and 5G, or Deborah Tavares and Jeff Rentz, because she is working on Jeff Rentz Radio Network, doing some interviews and giving some exposés. She talks about this NASA war document that they have. Creepy stuff, guys. Really, and you're right. It originated from NASA. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of opposition to this. It's not like it, you know, there's no opposition to it. There's 220 doctors in 39 countries have already signed a petition stating that, you know, they need to slow down and this needs to be looked at closely because of the dangers of it. There's lots and lots of different action groups and people who are in different areas and different countries who are aware of this technology and are doing whatever they can to stop it. So I think it's a matter of us all actually getting on board with this. And
have you read any of the medical reports that they supposedly did for it? Because they do a test to show what the radiation levels are and what phones are emitting what levels of radiation, and so they use what they call like a dummy skull, you know, with a certain thickness, and but the thing is it turned out that it was based on the skulls of 10,000 male adults. And it was also, and these skulls, when you looked into it further, it turned out that these 10,000 average skulls were actually members of the United States Marine Corps. I shit you not.
Yeah, I read
not babies, not children, but literally jarheads. No offense, because not all Marines are jarheads.
Yeah.
True.
But they're used as they're used as their test, as their control. Basically, some of the biggest guys with some of the thickest skulls to test on, to base their model on.
Well,
you know that
so often testing has been done disingenuously.
Well,
far too often.
Yeah, I mean, even the test done on the electrosensitivity of the public, that was a flawed test done by a university. They use like 10 meter pulsed waves. They don't do tests on constant waves being, you know, put into the body. It's always
24/7. Yes.
Yeah. This is the problem. We say we don't have we have this all the time, and it's depending on where you happen to live. We know that around cell towers in this country, there's cancer clusters around cell towers. You know, and we know that people suffer, and it depends. You know what you use, if you've got smart meters, or if you've got wireless telephone, or all the things that use all this electromagnetic waves, radiation. Depends, you know, it depends where you are and how you use it. But even those tests, they're all flawed. But to think now that we are going to be basically irradiated wherever we go, you know, whether it's in your own home from this the Internet of Things stuff, or whether it's when you're in your car or when you're outdoors, it's just constant. So considering that cancers take between 10 and wherever beyond years to manifest, you know, like you look, they're planned for this 2030 agenda is all in place. Because if this gets rolled out in 2020, you know, everywhere properly, by 2030, that will be it. And the Internet of Things, basically, we're the things they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
As I was doing some research for the upcoming show, I watched a video. It was a compilation of various news reports, just from the regular mainstream media, about people being upset that these 5G cell phone towers were just being placed in their neighborhoods with no warning. No one asked.
In their front yards.
No informed consent.
No informed consent. And a lot of times the politicians were answering, well, yes, I did allow this because basically my hands are tied. If I don't allow this, then I get sued by the federal government. So either we take the bribe, the little bit of payment that the private telecom companies will, you know, pay us with. Meanwhile, who knows what their bottom lines are looking like, or if we, you know, if we try to fight this or push back on it, the feds come in and do a blitzkrieg with the lawyers against us. So yeah, and then there was one very telling. It was like a city council meeting in some small town where where they're proposing to put a cell tower right in front of the elementary school, and several parents spoke out, and then a little girl gets up to the microphone and she says, "I don't want this tower here because I don't want to get cancer." And the man that's doing the presentation answers back to her. He says, It's interesting that you say that, because in fact, my child went to an elementary school and there was a cell tower there and he got leukemia. But the cell tower had nothing to do with him getting leukemia.
Right.
And there is no evidence pointing to it. And so we are in this perpetual game of the human mind is so powerful, and is the weapon itself. I think it's the most powerful weapon in the world. But let's keep extra eye out for those folks that that will say things like that. Say, look, here's the evidence from my own real life that there could be a correlation, yet what I'm going to claim with a straight face back to you and say, I don't accept that evidence. There is no evidence. Yeah, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here.
You know, my biggest concern is that all of us are basically preaching to the choir. It's almost like an echo chamber. And I hate that thought, because here's a little fun fact for you guys. 1,000 adults were interviewed, and nearly 10%, that's 100 out of 1,000, nearly 10% of adults interviewed thought that chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
You're kidding. Oh my God.
So here's my point.
It doesn't? Seriously?
Shut up, don't. So here's my point is, look, without a doubt, fully 25% of the population is downright fucking retarded.
I remember seeing something on the internet years ago, maybe when YouTube first started, 10 years or more ago, and it was a guy interviewing Americans, and they were asking questions like, how many sides does a triangle have? And
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, do you remember it?
Yes.
I'm sure it wasn't a spoof. I didn't think it was a spoof. It
was not a spoof. It was not a spoof.
No, there's tons of people out there doing exactly that, asking basic questions, 5th grade questions to adults who can't answer.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of videos that show how dumb people are, with just like that, interviewing people on the street. Hey, how many stars are on the American flag? How many stripes? What are the stripes for? What are the stars for? And they just can't fucking answer.
It's a surprise when you've got such talented poets and musicians like Kim Kardashian in the news. It's a
gee.
You've got these wonderfully talented, culturally aware, popular icons. It's surprising, isn't it?
Our talent pool is a cesspool.
Pretty much.
Mark Dice, whatever you think of that guy, I don't care. Mark Dice does a lot of that. He's got tons of videos where he goes out on the street. He asks people, what are you reading right now? What's the last book you read? And nobody, just name an author. And people are like, can't name a single author.
Cherry picking for the results? Is he cherry picking people there? Would he do that on like a university campus or?
I thought that too. And look, Jay Leno used to do that. There are other people and other YouTube channels that go out and they interview people, and just to show how dumb people are.
Yeah, but you could go out and do that with that specific purpose in mind, and go out and go, right, they don't look like the sharpest stick. I'll go and ask them. It's probably cherry picking, or to some degree. No?
To a degree, no doubt. No doubt. They're not going to show all the people that answer correctly. Obviously, the point is how many people don't answer, how many people just don't know, how many people, adults who just don't know basic stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think it's actually their fault. I think it's because what they've been doing for years, brainwashing and fluoride in the water and the chemtrails and all.
I'm with you, Andy.
Yeah.
I agree, but I also disagree. There are these lines.
Look, we are responsible.
If you don't know how many sides a triangle has, at some point, that is your own damn fault. It really is.
That's right. It's exactly right, Bart. Look, it's exactly. Thank you. I was going to say something very close to that. We are responsible. Look, me and you and everyone on this panel and everyone in the live chat, there's 50 people watching right now. Well, look, we all grew up under the same system, but we're not ignoramuses. Right? We all grew up in the same brainwashing system, and yet we all broke free from it.
Yeah, well,
so we are responsible. It's 50-50. It's 50-50.
Yeah, I always wanted to. I had a sense from very early on that something was not right. I had a natural aversion to stupidity. I thought I value intelligence. I want to pursue intelligence and wisdom, and it boggles my mind that more people don't.
Well, I just feel that the education system and all the different things that go on that create this idiots, basically. A lot of the time. I think really, if people would take the time to actually talk to people and explain things more to them, I think it would help. And I'll give you, for instance, right, when I used to be actively protesting against things like the welfare reforms in the UK, I used to go on to used to just stand there with a big placard. People used to come over, and say, why are you standing here? And you discuss things with them. And they might start off where they don't actually know what you're talking about. But it wasn't long before the same people were so interested in saying, oh, I never thought of that. And I didn't think of things like that. You know, you've made me think. And it really did make a difference to a hell of a lot of people. Even, I tell you, when the swine flu vaccines were getting pushed on the public. Now, in my area, I thought, no, I'm not having that. I'm going to go out into town. I'm going to get a table. I'm going to create leaflets. Because I always believe that it's in activism that we change things. So I said, right, I'll go out on the street. I'll get a leaflet table, and I'll stand out on the street. And they're just trying to push this swine flu vaccination program. And I've already done my research. And I know it's all bollocks, excuse the language. But I said, right, so what I did was I went to the town hall, and because obviously when you do these things, you go right to the town hall. This is what I want to do, and you know, they'll say, "Oh, you need to get public liability insurance and all this sort of stuff." Well, I thought, well, sod it. I'll do it. I'll get public liability insurance, and I'll do it. So I went to the town hall and I said to them, I want to have a leaflet stall, and I want to give people information about what's in the swine flu vaccine, you know, and all the problems with it. And how it's been used in the Gulf War veterans. They've been getting this stuff in their bodies, and it's caused all sorts of illnesses. And they basically said, well, you can't. And I said, well, what do you mean you can't? I said, well, they said, well, you can't do that. I'm sorry. I said that. Well, now I could have actually just gone onto the street and done it anyway. But I actually used my head, and I thought, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write to the local paper, and I'm going to say, what is happening in society when all you want to do is give information to people about what's in a vaccine, so they can have the choice whether or not they want to actually take it. And here's our town hall people telling me, no, you can't do it. And then in the story, I listed all the ingredients. That then actually went all over the town where I live. So that story then, you know, went out to everybody. And funnily enough, the swine flu clinics were being set up that very week. So someone very clever in the newspaper industry put big advert for the swine flu clinics at the top and my story underneath it. And it completely blew it out the water. And all the times I've been outside and talked to people, and it takes a little bit of time because no one's taken the time to educate them, you know. And I'm talking about people who don't know how many sides to a triangle. They're beyond help. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who know something's wrong. They can't quite put the finger on what's going on. They just need some education. Yep. That's all. Excellent. And I'm sure with the 5G stuff, if people realize the dangers to their health, the cost of it financially, you know, the aesthetics of it with these towers everywhere, and the fact that there's not even, we can't even be sure of better connectivity or faster speeds or anything. We're being sold this as a dud. When people realise that, and also now because the public are very much aware that the governments have not got their best interest at all. Okay, and they've just spent in the budget £500 million, which they say they're going to be using for AI and 5G technology. 500 million. It's going to cost £6 billion to cover 90% of the UK in these towers. Who's going to pay all this money?
Right. We are. We'll pay for it. We'll pay for it.
So this is what I'm saying. If people, what we need to do is we need to say, okay, well, obviously there's people who are just beyond help. But for those people who are the majority, we need to reach them. We need to be able to give this information out to them, and for them to actually, well, then they'll go, well, what can we do about it? Like I said, there's documents that you can, there's a group of people in the In Power movement. They've already served these documents on people in these places of public places of power, and they've just resigned. They've had people walk out and resign on the job because they know fine well there's no research on what this technology is doing to people, what it could do in the future, what long-term problems could be. We already know that the problems that we're facing with the technology that we're using has already been sidetracked. And all the information from the medical people and from the independents who don't gain financially has all been ignored in favour of government and industry-related research. So we really, really do need to think. I mean, I've got this group, like I said, on this Real Change Hastings group. I'm now going to be organising a Dangers of 5G conference in January for all the UK, and get speakers down there and get people. And I'm going to get some people in, and we're going to film it, and we're going to make DVDs out of it, and we're going to share that around as much as we can. So, you know, like you were saying, Aaron, about preaching to the choir. Well, let's not preach to the choir anymore then. You know, let's go beyond that and start taking this to the ordinary people on the street. That's what I'm all for doing. Because if we don't convince people that this is a danger, and even if you don't even go near the whole, you know, depopulation agenda and all that, if you can just stick to the things that they can relate to, then we can actually stop it. Because if we don't stop this, we'll kiss our asses goodbye.
Yes.
That's it for you.
Well, we're going to have to get off of our asses and literally show up in person. I don't know.
Show up where?
At the places where these people are pushed. What people need to do is, everywhere's different, every area is different, everyone's working at different levels, right? I can only work in my own area and find out what my councillor are up to, or my, you know, the health department in my area is up to, and then I can approach them and say, no, I don't think so. I'm going to get people, and we're going to stop this. You're not getting away with this. I can't do it for everybody in the whole bleeding country. People are going to have to do this in their own areas. Find out what's going on in their own area. Form their own groups. Start your Real Change Hastings or your Real Change wherever in the different areas. There's all about 10 groups already, but they're not focused on the 5G technology, but they're starting to get the hint now, because I had an interview on Friday with the guy who started the Real Change movement, and now lots of people are starting to realise that the enormity of this problem. So it's a matter of locally, you work on a local level, you find out what's going on locally, you do something about it, you get together, you prepare, you plan, you fight back.
Show up at your local councilman meeting, show up at your local town hall meeting, show up at your congressman or your representative's office and be a thorn in his freaking side day after day. And look, we have jobs. It's not that easy. I understand. But look, we are a minority. Those of us that are awake and aware of this stuff, we are a minority. You know, we can only we use this platform, we make information available for anyone who wants to learn. But, you know, back to that article, the Soviets test radio waves as a tranquilizer. They can alter animal and human behavior. For example, a simple 10 hertz wave can put someone into a stupor within a couple of minutes using with neuroelectric devices. They can put individuals or entire towns asleep.
Yes.
On command. They were doing this in the 70s.
Where's your source? What source material? Where are you getting that from?
The source material, this is the article that is titled, this is an older article, Soviets test radio waves as tranquilizers. I mean, there are examples, and if you go looking around and go looking for this information, there are examples where they have whole auditoriums. I understand, I haven't seen it myself, but I hear that there's a video of an entire auditorium of people that are fucking asleep. And there's one of those little boxes, one of those little Adele boxes, or pardon me, if I forget what it was actually called from that article.
Oh, no, yeah.
Woodpecker box, yeah.
The woodpecker box, the little one.
Yeah.
EDLM or something like that.
Yeah, the one from the article I read, Dr. Ross Adele. God dang it, I just can't.
The Lita box.
Lita box, that's right. They had a little Lita box, thank you, Amy, on the podium, and they had a whole fucking auditorium of people that are just asleep, passed out.
That was in the 70s.
You know, doesn't that remind you of that movie, The Kingsman?
I never saw it, but
yes,
it wouldn't surprise me.
They can aggravate people. They can alter sexual preferences. They can eliminate memory.
Wow.
They can turn on desire. They can turn on repulsion. They can literally hijack your nervous system and your brain.
Yeah, yeah.
They've been doing this shit for 50, 60, 70 years now. How good do you think they are at it now?
Yeah, yeah.
Could I? Don't you think that they've been doing it for hundreds and thousands of years?
Maybe, Bart.
Just with different technologies. I think that this is sort of an important point to make. If it wasn't certain books and churches and certain ways of, like for a while, I got very passionate around studying the cadences of ministers and how that's a use of sound in order to induce
neurolinguistic programming,
but also acoustic, weaponized acoustics. Yeah, it's been done with architecture, city planning, and I get that what we're talking about is what is the newest, scariest version of this, and but my point would be, once we get 10 years down the line, there's going to be the next newest, scariest version of all of this, and it might be holographic, or it might be.
I disagree. This technology we're at the start of, this isn't going to be changing. We're going to have this form of technology for maybe as long as we've had the petrochemical engine. We might have this for 100 years. This is just the start of the whole cellular tower thing. Maybe
yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely do.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think technology, we're on an acceleration track.
Yeah, sure, we're on an acceleration curve, whatever, but they're only going to give you what they want you to have. They're only going to give you this level of technology, aren't you? Do you see what I mean? You know?
Yeah. But and so the other thing I would argue is that they're I don't think stopping it or trying to stop it. Now, I think becoming aware of it is the most important part, and I think that there are all the people that are concerned in their attempts to stop it are going to play an important role in the entire dynamic. But I don't see this thing stopping. So what is the solution? The solution is the thing that has always been the solution, which is to go inward and be responsible for your own self-defense and the self-defense of your friends and families, and then all of that spread out to the communities. So, yeah.
No, sorry, there won't be any self-defense.
I was about to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so I can't be that defeatist. There's always a self.
That is defeatist because you've said that you don't think this is going to get stopped, and I'm saying the only way that humanity has got a chance of surviving as human beings is for it to be stopped. Because if it goes through, you're talking about a depopulation agenda. You're talking about all the things that we've talked about. There won't be any escape from it.
No, that's right. That's right.
Gotta nip it in the bud.
These millimeter waves cause a myriad, a freaking laundry list of physical ailments that create chronic diseases that you're going to die from.
I think this also ties in some way with what they call the cloud, isn't it? They also want everything. Whenever you go to put anything online now, do you want to store this in the cloud? So they've weaponized the water, they've weaponized our food, and now they're going to weaponize the airwaves, literally.
Yep. Food, water, air. Man, I tell you.
This has got to be stopped. I mean, there is no two ways about it. There's no ifs and buts about it. We have to stop this. And people who realize the dangers of it need to do something about it. And we need to be getting the public on our side and saying, yes, you're right, we need to stop this, okay?
Well, without mass awareness, and I'm so sorry, I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but I have to be a realist. Because if you remember the 2008 bailouts where they pumped trillions of dollars into the economy because the banks were too big to fail.
Yeah, they use that term here.
AT&T is one of the main pushers behind this technology and this overall rollout worldwide. And there is already a push to boycott AT&T because of this. Now, my thought is, if people woke up in mass and they started boycotting, say, AT&T, let's say everybody drops their AT&T cell service, AT&T stocks start to freaking plummet, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to stop? I don't think so. I think this plan is going to move forward. I think that they will use tax dollars and they'll bail out AT&T. It's too big to fail. They're going to push this forward no matter what. I'm afraid that there's nothing we can do. And I'm sorry to be a stick in the mud. I don't look as much as active. I don't care how active we all get. I don't care how many people wake up. This is their fucking plan. They want global domination. They want total domination. What is it? Full spectrum dominance. They want total surveillance, total control. They want a mind-controlled zombie robot, a hive mind army of 500,000, people.
500 million.
Right.
The hive mind.
Maybe
the hive mind's very much.
Maybe that's why we're alive at this point in time, because it's the difference between, can we change this world, or do we just accept that we can do nothing about it? And as far as I'm concerned, I will die trying. And as far as
I will die
trying too.
You die trying, and the thing is, if you just do whatever you can to get information out so that people know what's going on and become active, go to the town hall, pull the guy up who's saying, yeah, we're going to get this new technology, and say, no, mate, we're not. Group of us, we're not. If we could do that, if people could do that en masse, in all areas all over UK and America and everywhere else that they're trying to. I mean, it's happening now. There's people now. I've got videos on my Facebook page, with this town hall meeting where there is people who are standing up and shouting out about it and saying, you're not rolling this stuff out. It's dangerous. You're worse than the Nazis. There's a massive back going on. Okay, we're not like it's all doom and gloom because there's nothing we can do. We should be joining the fight back and being positive and saying, no, we have to fight these bastards.
I want to say one thing.
Go ahead, Amy.
I am not going to die trying. I am going to succeed. But should my plans not work out, dying trying? Does that make sense? Because I plan to succeed.
Well, that's a better, more positive attitude, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that.
As a side note, I do think it's interesting that this quantum computing that they're talking about with the AI system, they refer to it as qubits. The letter Q, and bits as in bits of information. And when you put the two together, it's qubits. It's the Egyptian cubit. It's a unit of measurement.
Everything's pharaonic, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Say pharaonic or moronic?
Pharaonic.
Oh, yeah, good.
But yeah, this goes back to what Bart was saying, that this potentially is thousands of years old.
Yeah,
thousands of years.
Here's another trivia question for you. Where is the highest three-sided obelisk? The highest
Washington, D.C.
three-sided obelisk.
In Washington, D.C.
Three-sided
obelisk.
Three-sided obelisk.
Russia.
I don't know, mate.
Clue us in.
Somerset, England, the Wellington Monument.
Interesting. Wellington.
I didn't even know that there were three-sided obelisks.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, it's for commemoration for good old Lord Wellington. It's in Somerset. It's three-sided, very impressive in the Blackdown Hills.
So Annie, what can you tell us about the 5G and the cryptocurrencies that are running rampant around the world? There's always a new one. Every other day there's a new cryptocurrency. Obviously the New World Order, whoever globalists, whoever elites are running the world, they want a cashless society. This is obvious. This is being visualized and conceptualized as we speak. I think the cryptocurrency is the crack in the door for the end of physical cash. The 5G network is going to play a role. You know, you hear a lot of people talking about a lot of financial channels on YouTube talking about, oh, you know, there's going to be a crash. It's coming soon. I don't think there's going to be any economic crash until cryptocurrency is where they want it. What can you tell us about 5G and cryptocurrency?
Well, you probably know more about that than I do, because, you know, all I know is that they will have to make it a digitized economy for this to work. So whatever they plan to do as far as that part of it goes, you probably know more about it than I do. I know there's a guy on YouTube, oh, I wish I remember his name now. He's just an expert on this sort of stuff, and he's talking about it. And so, I mean, like I said, I'm not an expert on all aspects of 5G. I'm not. You know, I've only just delved into what I've delved into. And every single day, I'm still learning stuff every day. You know, I spend most days researching this stuff to find out as much as I can about it all. So, you know, when I know more about it, then obviously I can't talk about things that I don't fully know about. So that's probably one of them.
Well, all I can say is that this is all the more reason we should be working to eliminate the need to account for human energy entirely. Because as long as there's money, there will be people who are psychopathic in control. Money systems promote psychopaths.
I think it was Aaron. Was it Aaron that mentioned Skynet earlier?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Have we all? I expect we've all seen the Terminator, haven't we? At some point?
By now, I think so.
Probably most people.
Yeah.
Even Amy has seen.
Even me, I've seen at least one of them.
Well, you know, we all remember that concept of Skynet, don't we?
Right. That's the point.
And I wonder if that was, you know, I'm not fully programming. If it was, yeah, if that really was a genuine case of, you know, predictive programming, introducing it specifically into our generation as such.
You know, somebody left me a comment under one of the video. I think it might have been the promo for Analogical to come on. Somebody left me a comment, and it was saying that they said, did you know that the television, when it was invented, was held back for something like 20, 30, 40 years before it was introduced to the public, while they did studies on the flicker rate of the frame rate, which interacts with the alpha brainwave state of the people that are watching.
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised.
In other words, look, and this is true, okay? This is not even conspiracy. Anytime a new technology is developed, and I don't care what kind of technology or when in history it's ever occurred, anytime something new comes along, the military gets their freaking grubby hands on it first, and they develop it, and they decide when and how to release it.
Of course.
Yep.
Just like Google, just like the internet, just like television.
Just like they had to steal everything from of Tesla's. And
right. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So, I mean, we could do a whole show practically just on the television alpha brainwave flicker rate that they have developed that puts you in a fucking trance when you're watching the TV.
Well, also, Logie Baird, who was the inventor of the television, he was a well-known 33rd degree, probably Scottish Rite Freemason. He was right up there.
Yeah.
And that was when the Victorians were playing around with protoplasm and seances and whatnot. And he was the initial use of the television was to try and contact the spirit world. That was what he was inventing it for.
Right. I seem to recall reading that somewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty well documented, you know.
And I think I remember on just this past Friday's show, at the very end of the show, I was talking about, for those who don't believe me, just turn on your TV and then turn off all the lights in the room and then and then don't watch it. Put your back to the TV and look at the wall, and look at how the wall is flashing every time the scene changes, and then count how many times, count how many seconds in between each scene change. It's usually 1 to 3 seconds, and there's almost always a bright white flash in between every scene change.
You've got too much time on your hands.
Pardon me for thinking.
But then, you know, this is the thing. You see, I don't like to think of technology as being bad. It's just it's like so much. Well, it's like a tool. Like, it's the application.
I've said this before. It's like a hammer. Okay, I can build a house with a hammer, or I could hit you in the head and kill you with it.
Yeah,
it's just a fucking tool.
Yep.
Everything is just a tool. All technology is just a tool. It can be used for good or ill. Just like money. Amy, not to derail the conversation, but it's just like money. It's just a tool.
Well, yes, money is just a tool. However, it is a very dangerous tool, and it has, where was I going to go with that? Rats.
It facilitates psychopaths in power. I've got a good idea where you want to go. I don't want to derail us. I don't want to derail. But my point is, it's just a tool. It can be used for good or ill.
And my point is that it is an archaic tool that we can put down and pick up far better tools.
So what about Elon Musk talking about how we need to augment human biology with implanted microchips in the brain in order to keep up with the AI computers of the future, because according to some reports, your standard laptop is going to become smarter than the human being by what, 2025, something like that?
I'd say that. Well, if we judge on Americans knowing how many sides a triangle have, I'd have said the average calculator.
Hey, there's plenty of videos.
Was smarter than.
There's plenty of videos that show how dumb Brits can beat, so don't go there.
Okay, I'm not denying that either.
Oh dear.
All right. So what do you guys think about? Look, this whole transhumanism movement. We're going to have to, in order to keep up with what AI is up to these days, right? Even fucking Facebook had its own AI software. They had to shut down because the thing was.
The Facebook is the CIA. Facebook is
fine. They still. From what I understand, they implemented some AI programs that they themselves had to literally pull the plug on because the thing was creating its own language that they couldn't understand. It was doing shit that they didn't know what it was doing or how to break down what it was doing. They pulled the plug on it. And there was I got a note here somewhere. Pardon me for having to look for it. AI rewrites itself. You can't take it apart and figure out what it's doing. We make machines that do what we tell them. That's no longer true. Let me see. Drone kill decision. I'm sorry, I lost that note. It's somewhere buried in my.
What year did the supercomputer first beat Kasparov, the chess master? What year was that? That was in the 70s, wasn't it? Wasn't that in the 70s?
Yes, it was. That's right. The first computer beat the chess master. That's right. It was in the 70s or early 80s.
I think it was the 70s, late 70s.
By
they're also working on editing our genetic code.
Yes, they are.
Which is highly disturbing, to say the least.
It is. It's what gives them the right. What gives them the right to do that?
Well, I suppose nothing more than their bank account, really. And I know where you're going to go with that one, Amy.
Yeah. The things that money creates. Oh, I remember what else I was going to say. Money is the soil in which the root of all evil grows. If we remove the soil, guess what?
All right. Excellent point. Okay, I found it. Facebook had to shut down its chat bots because they became racist and hateful and developed its own language.
Well, that would just be because but that would just be because they're a reflection of what the majority of stuff that's going on social media, which is vile trolls and, and racists and bigots and
online persona management
That's
behaving that way.
That's right.
And Tel Aviv. Let's not forget the Israeli connection, because they have absolute factories full of people doing nothing but pro-Israeli and whatever they want on the internet, literally paid to do nothing else other than that, troll for Israel on the internet. And I'm sure we've all come across a few of them.
Yep.
So some of the movies that we've seen in recent past, like, what's it called? Idiocracy. Anybody seen that movie?
I haven't actually seen it, but I've seen bits and pieces of it and gotten a clue what it was all about.
It's a comedy. It's about a future where everybody is so fucking dumbed down.
Yeah.
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy is so utterly, people are so utterly dumbed down that the whole society starts to collapse because they're watering their crops with Brondo, which is basically like Gatorade.
Yeah, that's my favorite joke.
Jeez.
So nothing grows, and they're getting, they're facing, global
That's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Can we just stop on that? The introduction in the last few years of, especially with the younger generation and even school children, drinking those fucking Monster Energy drinks and all of
those things.
Those are ghastly.
But they've been.
Have you ever tried one?
Very much, haven't they? Very much.
It tastes like chemical waste straight out of Chernobyl. You ever taste one of those?
I think I've had 5 of them in my life, and yeah, they taste nasty.
I've had 2 or 3 sips off of one, okay, and that was enough for me to go, "What the fuck is this? This is It tastes like some chemical waste out of Chernobyl."
Oh, you get used to it. I mean,
you get used to it, like smoking.
Get used to it. I guess.
Being punched in the face, it doesn't mean you want to be.
Well, no,
yeah, you get used to 5G. How this?
I'm just saying, bull semen has a nice perky.
Oh dear! You've just let that out in the open now.
No, that's what's in the drinks. Taurine. It's actually synthesized from bull semen.
Well, you're
Red
not joking.
Bull, that's why it's called Red Bull, because it's bull semen. That's what gives it the kick.
I thought it was taurine.
Yeah.
But there's like tons of stuff in those. It's not just that, is it? It's loaded with caffeine. Isn't it the same as having like 5 espresso coffees or something stupid like that? The amount of caffeine in them.
No,
that's not good for a 13-year-old to go to school.
Right. Anyway,
I'll double check that, because I don't like to be wrong about stuff, but I've been thinking of it in terms of bull semen for a long time.
I've dropped a link in the chat about there's a guy who's an expert on the cryptocurrency and the AI. If anybody wants to look, it's quite a long video, so maybe people will watch it later on. But
Quinn Michaels, yeah,
yes, that's him, yeah. Well, I just wanted to. Did you know that there's actually 8 projects that have occurred where they've actually built up a smart city or smart town from scratch?
For some reason, I'm not able to drop links in the live chat. So Amy, who seems to be the only one that can do it right now, unless Bart, you want to try. I don't know. I keep trying, but it won't go.
The world
link do you want me to drop?
The one that Annie just put in the.
Well, it is a very long link. It's about an hour and something long. So
the Quinn Michaels video. It's on Jason Goodman's channel.
Yeah.
Now I did catch part of the interview that Jason Goodman did in Las Vegas with Quinn Michaels on AI, and the beginning where Quinn describes how the blockchain works and stuff like that. Really, really interesting and enlightening stuff for anyone who's interested. Good stuff.
Yeah.
We Are Free just dropped a link. I don't know if that's the same link. IMDb.com.
No, that's a different link. I just dropped the
Cool.
Yeah,
YouTube.
They're up to a couple 100 hours worth of content, I think, now with Quinn and the AI, and so I think Goodman is attached to him fairly recently, but I think Quinn has his own channel where there was one I was listening to earlier today where he is interacting with Tyler in artificial intelligence, and he's going through that and what that looks like interacting with Tyler, and how he's sort of hacked into or accessed Tyler's main source code and is actually giving him new directives. And so this is my sort of angle that I've been exploring lately, which is why I can't be too down on the AI thing. Yes, I think it's scary. I think we need to be warning each other about the dangers as designed, as programmed, as intended by the dark forces. But I think what they're doing, I think that there are entire layers that are off of their radars. They know not what they do, and actually that's good. Meaning that if you sort of get the information about what the AI is as defined by the bad guys, then you're and not keep pushing through and keep exploring because it's always about the two sides of the coin, the double-edged sword, all of that. So I'm banking on this idea that when all you hear is the negative from about a certain topic, that must mean that the positive is so powerful that there's a very concerted effort to only push it as a kind of fear porn. But then again, I'm kind of an optimist.
I think that's a valid point. Because otherwise you're just going to drown in negativity, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, you've got to have some positive point in your perspective, or else you won't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and mine is more aligned with constructive positivity and less in the negation of something. This is sort of the point that I'm alluding to when I say this thing won't be stopped. But so the crucial part of it is how do we adapt to it? Someone in the chat made a very valid comment, which is, any radio frequency that comes off of anything can be countered by an inverted version of that frequency. So, and then one thing that just popped into my mind is this game that started being played in. I love this. This is the complete analog approach, which is all of these surveillance cameras that they were putting up everywhere for a while. Well, somebody made up a game where you score virtual points by climbing up on the thing and smashing the thing with a hammer. So $10,000 worth of effort what has been counteracted by a $5 tool and a little bit of effort.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously another thing that people can. Yeah, you can just go and hammer them down and take them down.
I'm just saying there's a concept that I like, and it's sort of twisted and misunderstood by a lot of people, but it's a thing Terence McKenna put out there called the archaic revival, which is this idea that, and this is my interpretation of it, I think I have it fairly close to what he was talking about, which is the more we push forward and become confused about maelstrom of technocracy and complexity and complicated complexity and layers upon, we can become stupefied by it. And so the worse that gets, the deeper back into human history, the deeper back into nature we have to delve in order to reclaim the most positive aspects that are being eclipsed, the most positive aspects of ourselves that are being eclipsed by all of this, all of these junk signals, so to speak.
Wasn't Terence McKenna a known CIA asset?
I do believe that he worked with the FBI at some point, but I'm just looking at him like, this is, of course they're going to want to go have a chat with him. Of course they're going to want to go strike a deal with the guy who's making this many waves. When I listen to just his content, just to what he was saying, I just look at him as a revolutionary thinker and a poet. Whether
I look at him as a CIA or an FBI asset that led and was part of the so-called hippie movement, which was absolutely 100% a psychological operation.
I would be careful about 100% and absolutely.
Where did LSD come from?
I believe it was synthesized at Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Hoffman, and the first acid trip ever was on my birthday, April 19th, 1941. And
distributed, was it at Harvard or Yale?
There was a Harvard connection, there was a Yale connection. Yeah, of course. I'm not
nearly every single band from that era, nearly every single band from the Doors to the Grateful Dead, you name a big band from that era, they all had links to the military industrial complex.
Yeah.
The lead singer of the Doors, his fucking dad was at the Gulf of Tonkin incident in charge of everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's true.
Jim Morrison, Riders on the Storm, that guy.
It's true. Here's what I would bank on. Same kind of a thing with the AI. What if and then plans within plans. Again, back to Dune. I can see plans within plans. So just because a plan is run by the CIA doesn't mean that they're necessarily getting all of the effects that they're planning for.
Sure, but you can guarantee one thing: it is not for the benefit of us. That's what I can guarantee.
Again, guarantee. I can't guarantee that, and I can't quite subscribe to. I don't think in absolutes, but that's okay. Maybe.
So you think the Central Intelligence Agency of America might be doing something good for you and me?
Perhaps by accident, sometimes.
Maybe by accident. Okay.
By accident, I might give it, but I'm absolutely not going to accept the idea that they're doing anything deliberately for us.
No.
Ever.
No.
That's not what I'm claiming. I
kind of did.
There's well, no. I think you're interpreting that's what I'm claiming. But I don't want to sidetrack the conversation somewhere where we don't want to go. So,
well, it's conspiracy or not. Here we come. So.
But there again, that's look. You've just used that term, Annie. Conspiracy. That has been proven. That was the CIA that introduced that term to therefore discredit anyone that was talking about the Kennedy assassination.
And the conspiracy theorist. That's why I'm a conspiracy analyst.
Term that they use.
But think about it this way. There could be somebody out there who's making these kinds of connections, and they go, "Oh, I learned about the CIA coming up and coining the term conspiracy. Therefore, this show, Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come, uses that term. Therefore, everything that those folks are talking about is driven by this CIA operation." Would that be that's kind of my point. I know what I'm doing and what I'm not doing and who I...
Well, except it's conspiracy or not.
Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is somebody could make that claim and believe it.
Whoa, back up. Remember, the term that the CIA specifically put up was conspiracy theorist, not conspiracy. Conspiracy theorist. That was what they wanted.
That's right.
That's right. And we are conspiracy analysts. We are not theorists.
Anyone who questions their narrative would be known as a conspiracy theorist, and that was because of there were so many inconsistencies with the Kennedy assassination that even the people who didn't know how many sides a triangle had were going, hold on, this is, you know, the government aren't telling us the truth here. And so they came up with that term. They had a think tank of seriously intelligent people to come up with the best terms to debunk people, to make them look like idiots, much like the flat earth psyop is doing now. Almost the same.
Yep.
I agree with most of that to a big degree. The entirety of my point is someone who doesn't think past a certain point might simply look at the term conspiracy in our show's name, connected in their mind to the idea that conspiracy theories was a thing that that the CIA came up with. And in their mind, they conclude, therefore, we are part of that entire operation.
I can say, Bart, that I can see that happening in a very, very small percentage of people's minds. I'm not going to say that I can see a great number of them going in that direction. And no matter what you do, some small percentage of people will get it totally wrong.
Agreed. And I think that I'm stretching the metaphor here by introducing that idea of, I'm talking about...
You're stretching too much there, Bart. I'll be perfect.
But within the conspiracy world, like most people out there don't even know that the term conspiracy theorist was coined by the CIA. But they do.
I bet the majority of people watching this show right now do know that. I bet.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about them. This is our group of like-minded individuals, and we respect each other and open discussion and exploring difficult and challenging and pressing topics. That's why I'm here. That's why I love being here. But my point would be though that okay, the example I gave is sort of narrow. It's the idea that someone who is a truther or investigator or an analyst could draw that conclusion if they're a little wacky. But on the other side of that is the vast population who will look at the title "Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come," roll their eyes and go, "That's that conspiracy thing that people do, and they're not worth listening to." So that's the vast majority of people would be triggered by the term conspiracy in our title and say, I don't want anything to do with that because I already know what that means, and that's a whole bunch of hogwash and bullpucky. Because the psychological operation worked that well, that people are just turned off and triggered by the word itself.
Annie Logical, final thoughts.
What I would like to say is just add something that a friend of mine, Deborah Jennings, has just mentioned to me that we might not have mentioned so far, and that was the connection between the Schumann resonance and how these electromagnetic frequencies interfere big time with this. She says this electromagnetic smog affects the body's natural rhythms essential for healthy biological function. And affects those functions in plants and animals, and this impacts cardiac function, cell division, cancer, and probably every aspect of our physiology. In humans, brain alpha waves are virtually identical to the Schumann resonance.
Right.
So also I'd like to just say, obviously, if people are looking for answers and what they can actually do, You know, look towards the Empower movement, the liability orders. Think about having events where you can talk to the public. You know, maybe have a little local event, or just do whatever you can, really. And the thing about saying, oh, we can actually take a hammer to these cell towers, yeah, obviously that is a possibility. But if these cell towers are emitting certain brain waves, certain radiomagnetic frequencies that interact with our brain waves locally, there's nothing stopping them from making us all believe that we're all diseased and we're all going to die, or we need to kill ourselves because we've got so much anxiety or anything. So that's what I'm worried about, is that once the infrastructure goes up, then they've got the technology to use it whatever way they will, basically.
Exactly. They'll sell it. It's a Trojan horse. Oh, look how beautiful it is on the outside. It must be perfect. Perfect for some things, but not for us.
Yeah. But anyway, just thanks for having me on, and yeah, it's been interesting.
We've loved having you here. You are awesome.
Absolutely, Annie. We've been anticipating having you on the show for a long time. We've had a great interest in a lot of people that wanted to come and, you know, listen to what you had to say on your current research on this subject. I think we've had a larger turnout today on the live chat than we've had in recent memory. I think the biggest turnout we had was, well, Amy, can you help me out? Was it Zach Hubbard? I think Zach Hubbard 6 months ago was the last time we had a turnout as large as we have right now. So Annie, you're a big hit. People love you. We love you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. And I just can't thank you enough.
Oh, thanks ever so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. I think you're wonderful.
Thank you. Really appreciate. You know, I'm humbled. Thank you so much. And I'll keep on, you know, doing what I can and researching and giving the information to people, and that's all I can do, really. It's what I feel driven to do, and it's what I hopefully, you know, do. So just thank you for everyone who's listened, and I hope, you know, that we've covered enough for people to go and do their own research now and maybe think about what they can actually do to stop this. So thanks again, everyone, and it's been great, and I look forward to listening to more shows in the future.
Yeah, again, thank you. Look, for anyone listening, this stuff is no joke. Although we crack a few jokes around here, we try to keep it light on occasion. This subject is creepy, it's dark, it's scary. Our future is bleak. If we don't band together, as like Annie said earlier, whatever differences we have, I don't care. This is one of the things that really, really, really needs probably more attention than anything else. ElsaGate, if you guys are familiar with the child grooming YouTube channels on ElsaGate, that's something that needs a lot of attention. But this 5G thing, this is worldwide. This is going to affect everybody. This is going to take us into a bleak and dark future that we do not want to go down. This is a road we don't want to go down.
Aaron, did you notice? I think I maybe have shared it with Amy, but maybe not you. That the day after we were chatting about ElsaGate, and I was saying, we were all saying about it's about time for another Madeleine McCann story, another follow up on that, and bang, the very next day there it was in the Daily Mail, another Madeleine McCann story.
Yep, indeed, there it was.
Because that's the darkest probably agenda out there, you know, as well as 5G is the lowering the age of consent and sexualization of children.
Was it Germany that they did that first? They lowered it to 13 or 14, the age of consent?
Maybe Portugal. I don't know. It's different. It's different in all the countries of Europe.
So I mean, look, we've got a whole society that's based on Satanism. It's based on debauchery. It's based on the opposite of everything that is good. And I think most of us listening and watching can see that and recognize it. Mark in the chat, he just says, great show. ElsaGate really upsets me. It does me too, Mark. ElsaGate is creepy stuff. Okay,
Utterly
disgusting.
creepy.
Anybody listening, if you got kids, take the fucking iPad away from your kids. Okay, just stop it. Stop using your iPad to babysit your freaking children, because what your children ultimately are watching is some creepy, disgusting, debaucherous shit. I mean, just YouTube search ElsaGate and see what comes up, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's beyond disturbing. But this thing that we're talking about, this 5G network, it is going to mind control. It's going to turn us all into fucking zombies. It is a bleak future we're facing, you guys, and this is a serious topic. This is a serious issue. I hope people take it serious, and I hope that we've done some good. I hope that we've provided some information that people can latch onto and run with it and, you know, change their behavior. I don't care if you boycott AT&T or drop your cell phone or throw your iPad in the trash. I don't know what it's going to take to stop this. I honestly don't. I'm afraid it can't be stopped. I hope it can. I've got great hope. I don't think it can be stopped. I think if we band together and if everybody boycotts AT&T, the government's going to take your fucking tax dollars. They're going to bail out AT&T. They're too big to fail. The shit's going to plow forward no matter what. That's my feeling. And I'll give you guys the final thoughts.
I hate to agree with you, Aaron, but I'm kind of agreeing with you there. I hate to say it. It's like saying, why aren't we all up in arms about the fluoride in our water? You know? Why? There's, you know, no one even questions that anymore, do they? No one even questions that.
Oh, I do.
Well, I think
we do. Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm talking about the majority.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's for your teeth. It's for your teeth. It's for your teeth.
Well, we're not up in arms over fluoride because of the fluoride in the water.
I was just going to say that. Isn't that one of those interesting things where it's the reason that you're not mad about it is because there's fluoride in the water.
It's self-defeating.
And those are the really dangerous, sinister sort of forces at work, the ones that are sort of double-ended, and one feeds the other.
And that's why no matter how you look at it, the conclusion, no matter how, whenever you apply logic to any of these situations, that's what you come to the conclusion is the people in charge, the people making the rules are psychopaths. It has to be, doesn't it? There's no other conclusion to be made.
But there's always a chance for disrupting it.
I agree.
You know what? On that subject of disrupting, it is true that whatever the waveform that you're being attacked with, be it sound or electromagnetic, there is in fact a way to counter that with the opposing waveform where the peaks and valleys cancel each other out.
Mm-hmm. I think, and for me, it's just an opportunity to. So let's say you start learning that. Let's say you start chanting and oming in such a way where you find that if you run these ranges of tones, make these sound bubbles around you, suddenly you're on a path of discovering your own aura and how to affect your electromagnetic field around your body through the power of your own will and voice. And then you're off into finding new superpowers as a human being. So as a juxtaposition to the ways that you're being attacked. I mean, again, for me, it's self-defense. It's like Kung Fu. It's like Bushido. What do you do when somebody comes at you with the sword? Well, if you don't know any martial arts, then you probably get chopped up by the sword. But if you start learning, suddenly you know, oh, I have 100 different techniques to counteract this sword attack.
So what would you suggest to counteract 5G then?
You know what? The sad part is you're going to need some fucking technology to do it. You have to know the frequency you're being bombarded with.
I would say the number one thing. Well, okay. One of the first things would be to even wrap your mind around hertz are, megahertz are, what sound is. So you know that thing when you read a label of one of these processed food, labels, and you start reading all of these big words that you've never encountered before. You have no idea what they are, where they come from, what they'll do to you, and you get down to the bottom of the list. You're exhausted and you're scared because you think, really, am I putting this into my body? There's so many unknowns. But one of the best ways around that is just look at the label. If you see that list, you put the thing back and you find the thing with the shortest amount of ingredients and all with words that you know and understand. I'm not saying that cures that problem 100%, but it sure does give you a better chance. So when it comes to the 5G stuff, I think it's about, so you don't get triggered around every single time you hear a number point another number and megahertz and gigahertz and so that you're not always triggered into fear by going, oh, here we go again. I'm getting bombarded, because that in itself is part of the psychological operation, in my opinion. It's a psychic kind of attack where they bombard you with stuff that they know that you don't understand or not educated in, and that's enough to scare you. I'm not saying there's nothing to be scared of in the 5G. I will attest there's plenty to be scared about. I'd say first level of self-defense is to look at things like the Schumann resonance. Understand what the Schumann resonance is. What is a resonance? And then try to figure out, maybe I could build my own device.
Have you got a Wi-Fi system in your house right now?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Have you, Amy? Is there a Wi-Fi where you live?
Well, we all do.
Yeah. I'm just saying. How are we having this conversation now? How are we able to do what we're doing now? It's because of that technology, isn't it?
Well, here's one thing that you can do. You can avoid. Now, I don't know for sure if this avoids the Wi-Fi signal itself, but you can actually get an Ethernet cable, plug your computer into your Wi-Fi router, and get a direct connection, and not,
which is exactly what I do,
and not use the actual Wi-Fi to connect to your computer. But that, I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I don't know if that actually shuts off the actual Wi-Fi signal, because if you're using your computer, you're plugged in via cable to your Wi-Fi router, and somebody else comes in and they want to use Wi-Fi, they're probably going to be able to get on Wi-Fi, which means you're not doing yourself any good. You're not stopping the Wi-Fi signal.
The thing is even if you get it, even if you don't have a Wi-Fi system at all, the chances are your neighbors do, if you have neighbors, which you probably do, and their Wi-Fi will be on anyway, and your other neighbors, the other side, their Wi-Fi will be on, even if you don't have Wi-Fi. So you're going to be in, what's Wi-Fi? Well, it's another form of wave radiation, isn't it?
Right. Well, I will give you a tiny glimmer of hope, and I haven't confirmed this, but I heard that California, at least a city or two in California, I don't know if it's statewide or if it's specific to a city, that the sheriff, that there's been enough of a pushback on this 5G rollout that the smart meter, you know what I'm talking about, the house?
Yeah.
For your house, the smart meters? There's been enough pushback in California on the smart meters that the sheriff has decided to issue a $500 citation to the installer.
Okay, he's issued that. Fine, so that's fine.
Maybe there's a tiny glimmer of hope there.
Result yet? Has there been a result from your court system on that, on the ruling?
No, I really don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard. I haven't confirmed anything.
The in-power people are having a lot of success making the people involved individually responsible. So I do recommend looking into the Empower movement. The only problem that I have is that you have to go through that damn legal system, which is vile and
geared against you. It's their system geared against you.
Breaches ethics. Yes, it breaches ethics far more than it serves them. So, you know, I'm all for just not that whole damn system. It's ugly. And
you see, my answer isn't quite the same as yours. It's more along the lines of, it's just use the system as little as you possibly can and give it as little as you possibly can and take from it as little as you possibly can. Just remove yourself from it, but you can't remove it. It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah, except that if you consent to it, then you as a subject.
Yeah, but it's already got
do you
all
see
of us.
where
It's
I'm
already got
going
all
with
of
that?
us,
If you
hasn't it?
withdraw your consent from the
But to do that,
system,
but to actually do that, Amy, you would have you would have to go off grid. You'd have to go off grid and be completely self-sufficient.
No. No. Very kindly say I withdraw consent, but I'll be happy to be subject if you prove I'm subject. And yes, they may decide to prove they can be bullies, but that's all they're proving. They're not proving that you are subject to the system. They are proving that you are subject to their bullying. And you know, when just a few of us are doing that, yeah, we're going to get bullied. But if all of us were doing that, they wouldn't know where to even start. Okay.
One of my favorite phrases is "No, thank you."
Well, that's why I had Amy create the meme that you'll see at the end of our outro. And by the way, Bart, since we're about to wrap this up, you want to get that ready. The meme is with the picture of George Soros. The one of the most powerful words ever spoken is the word "no."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm just saying I like to add the thank you in there too. No, thank you. Or no, thanks. No, thanks.
Listen, everybody, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
It has been.
Good one.
We need to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everybody in the chat for their contributions. I mean, we've had a hell of a turnout tonight. Anti-logical has been fantastic. And this is a serious topic that really needs more attention. You might see me produce videos in the future on this subject, particularly on that article that I was reading earlier. I thought about making a video on that today. But seriously, this is a subject that really needs to be pounded home, guys. This is dark, scary shit right here.
Yes, indeed.
All right, you guys. Any final thoughts without taking us into a big tangent?
Love always.
Well, listen, I usually rattle off the people in the chat. We've got a lot of new faces, and those of you who have wrenches, you know who you are. If you got a wrench,
I saw Bella was there.
I saw Bella in the chat. Happy to see Bella. Haven't seen her in a long time. But definitely Juxtapose was in there. Haven't seen him in a while. Blue Blood, our buddy up in the north there. Sandra.
Rebel Rhymes.
Pam Z. Rebel Rhymes was with us earlier.
Sons and Daughters of Liberty.
Karen McCardle. Hey, Amy, get me Karen's URL, and I'll give her a wrench before we kill this. We've got a lot of new people. James Owen's been hanging out with us. New Being was with us. Martin Mason, and I don't know who this other person is. They don't have a name. Actually, I don't know who that is. Who is that?
It's a period, is what it is.
The period? Yeah.
I guess.
Apparently that's all
I don't know what
there is.
else to call him, but that's what his handle seems to be.
What happened there? Baron von Tacote? Taco Cat? Baron von
Taco Cat. Come on, Taco Cat.
Taco Cat was timed out by Sandra. Sandra, what happened? Baron say something nasty? Wasn't watching.
Yeah, I missed it too. I saw that he was.
Sandra timed him out. Be nice, Baron. Sandra's going to time your ass out. All right, you guys, look, it's been great. Amy, if you get me that link, there it is. Okay, let me take care of that real quick before we shut down. And I want to give Karen a wrench as soon as my computer opens the page. But everybody, thank you for your contributions. And definitely a big shout out and thank you to Annie Logical. And
absolutely.
Big shout out to our buddy Dominic.
Cheers. It was a good show. Really, really interesting chat, as always.
It's been brilliant, mate. And
it would be nice to end on a positive note, wouldn't it? You know.
Well, you know, I want to ask you: Are you gonna make it next week? We're gonna be talking with Henry from Death to Life. We're gonna have a little bit of a flat Earth discussion next week. Are you gonna show up? Are you gonna bring your surveyor friend? Is that gonna work?
Yeah, I'll ask him. I'll see. What time is it? You'll tell me afterwards what time it is and stuff.
Well, it's gonna be regular. Well, so far, it's scheduled for the regular time, which is gonna be late for you.
Yeah, but it's not that bad now because we're only 5 hours out, so it's not. It's a bit more doable than it is during.
We can maybe bump an hour early. We can maybe go an hour early. What are you showing us there, Bart? You got something you're sharing? What do you? Oh, the chat.
I just have the. Oh yeah, sorry. Well, I thought we were. I had the outro going, and then
Okay, I didn't know if you were screenshotting.
And then you just kept talking. So.
Maybe we could go an hour early to accommodate Dominic, and we'll have to let Henry know. But that's what we're doing next week for anybody who's interested.
Okay, that works with Henry.
But we'll leave that up in the air for now. And Dominic, did you get with your friend? Is he going to be available?
I haven't spoken to him yet, but I will do. I'll get on the case.
Okay,
I'm sure
cool.
you'll be able to pop in for an hour or something.
All right, cool.
If he's not out measuring the Earth.
All right. Well,
I'll end on this note. I don't know totally how the phrase goes, but sometimes when a door closes, a window opens.
Fucking A. Much love, everybody. See you guys next Friday.
Don't eat the yellow snow.
Don't eat or the brown acid. Be good, everybody. Love you.
Ciao for now.
Go Bart.
All right, all right. Did it work? Did that work okay?